Hello friends. Did you know nearly 80% of those who watch my videos aren't subscribed? If you enjoy these stories, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like. It really helps. Thank you for being here. By the way, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments. The 18-wheeler's engine hummed steadily as Ulysses Thistlethwaite guided his rig down Highway 49 through the Mississippi Delta. The dashboard clock glowed 2:47 a.m. in that sickly green color that seemed to make the night feel even darker. Ulysses had been driving trucks for 23 years, and he'd learned to appreciate these quiet hours when the roads belonged to him and the occasional fellow trucker. But tonight felt different. Wrong, somehow. He'd been hauling refrigerated produce from Memphis to New Orleans for the past 8 years, making this same run twice a week. The route was burned into his muscle memory. Every curve, every pothole, every speed trap. He knew where the good coffee was, which rest stops to avoid, and exactly how far he could push his fuel tank before absolutely needing to stop. That's what made tonight's situation particularly frustrating. His fuel gauge, usually reliable as sunrise, was showing nearly empty when he should have had at least another 60 miles worth of diesel. Either he'd developed a leak, which he doubted since he'd checked everything at his last stop, or the gauge was malfunctioning. Either way, he needed to stop soon. The Mississippi darkness pressed against his windows like a living thing. Out here, between Clarksdale and Greenwood, there was nothing but cotton fields and swampland for miles in every direction. The nearest town, if you could even call it that, was Parchman, home to the infamous Mississippi State Penitentiary. Not exactly a place that inspired warm feelings at 3 in the morning. Ulysses shifted his considerable bulk in the worn driver's seat, his 6'4" frame making even the spacious cab feel cramped after hours of driving. At 48 years old, he'd developed the trucker's physique. Broad shoulders from wrestling with steering wheels, a substantial gut from too many truck stop meals, and hands like baseball mitts from years of work. His salt and pepper beard, which his ex-wife had always nagged him to trim, now hung down to his chest. A sign materialized in his headlights. Bumbershoots gas, 2 miles, open 24 hours, truckers welcome. Ulysses frowned. In all his years running this route, he'd never noticed this place. Must be new, though the sign looked weathered enough to have been there since the 60s. The reflective letters had that peculiar quality of old highway signs, where they seemed to glow with their own light rather than just reflecting his headlights. He reached for his CB radio, thinking to ask if any other drivers knew about this Bumbershoot's place, but static filled the channel. Nothing but white noise across every frequency. That was odd too. Usually there'd be at least one insomniac trucker chattering away about something or other. The fuel gauge needle dipped closer to empty. No choice then. He'd have to trust this Bumbershoot's place. The exit appeared exactly 2 miles later, just as promised. Ulysses eased his rig down the off-ramp, the trailer's weight shifting behind him with practiced familiarity. The access road was narrow, barely wide enough for his truck, with drainage ditches running along both sides. Spanish moss hung from the trees, creating a tunnel effect that made his headlights seem dimmer. The gas station appeared around a bend like something from another era. It wasn't just old, it was antiquated. The building was single-story, made of weather-beaten wood that might have been white once but had aged to the color of old bones. The roof was corrugated tin, rust-streaked and slightly askew, but the diesel pumps looked modern enough, and the lights were on inside. What struck Ulysses most was how isolated it was. No other buildings visible in any direction. No houses, no other businesses, nothing. Just this lonely station squatting beside the road like a spider waiting in its web. He pulled his rig alongside the diesel pumps, careful to position it for an easy exit. 23 years of driving had taught him to always plan his escape route. even if he didn't know what he might need to escape from. The air brakes hissed as he set them, and the engine's rumble died to silence. The Mississippi night immediately pressed in. No crickets, no frogs, none of the usual nighttime chorus that should have been deafening this close to the swampland. Just a thick, oppressive quiet that made Ulysses's skin crawl. He grabbed his wallet and climbed down from the cab, his joints protesting after hours of sitting. The concrete beneath his boots was cracked and weed-strewn. The diesel pumps were indeed modern, digital displays and card readers, but they looked somehow wrong against the decrepit building, like someone had grafted new arms onto a corpse. The pump's card reader was dark. A handwritten sign taped to it read, "Card reader broken. Pay inside first." Of course, Ulysses looked toward the building. Through the grimy windows he could see fluorescent lights flickering irregularly, casting strange shadows. Someone moved inside, but the dirt on the glass made it impossible to see clearly. He walked toward the door, his footsteps unusually loud in the silence. The door was wood with a glass panel, the kind with a bell attached that would ring when opened. Faded advertisements for products he'd never heard of were taped to the inside of the glass. "Drink Yum Yum Cola," "Smoke Temperance Cigarettes," "Mrs. Wickham's Miracle Tonic." The bell above the door didn't ring when he pushed it open. It made a sound more like bones rattling. The inside of Bumbershoot's gas was like stepping back in time, but not in a nostalgic way. More like stepping into a place that time had forgotten about and left to rot. The linoleum floor was yellowed and curling at the edges. Shelves held dusty products with labels so faded they were unreadable. A ceiling fan turned lazily, its blades coated with decades of accumulated grime. Behind the counter stood a man who could only be Mordecai Bumbershoot, the owner. He was tall and painfully thin, his body seeming to consist entirely of sharp angles. His age was impossible to determine. He could have been 40 or 70. His skin had that peculiar waxen quality of someone who rarely saw sunlight, and his hair, what little remained, was combed over his spotted scalp in greasy strands. But it was his smile that made Ulysses want to turn around and leave immediately. Too wide, showing too many teeth, and never reaching his pale, watery eyes. "Well, well," Mordecai said, his voice like oil over gravel. "Another traveler in the night. Don't get many folks this time of evening." "Just need diesel," Ulysses said, trying to keep the unease out of his voice. 40 gallons should do it." Of course. Mordecai's fingers, unnaturally long and thin, danced across an ancient cash register. "That'll be $160. Pay first, pump after, house rules." The price was reasonable enough. Ulysses pulled out his wallet, counting out the bills. As he did, he became aware of another presence in the store. A young woman had emerged from behind one of the shelves, moving with an odd, gliding motion that didn't quite match the sound of her footsteps. This had to be Persephone Snodgrass, though Ulysses had no idea how he knew her name. She looked to be in her early 20s, with long, stringy blonde hair that hung limply around a pale, heart-shaped face. Her eyes were the palest blue he'd ever seen, almost white, and they never seemed to blink. She wore a faded floral dress that looked like it belonged in a museum, and her feet were bare despite the filthy floor. "Persephone," Mordecai said without looking at her. "Why don't you get our guest something to eat? He looks hungry." "I'm fine," Ulysses said quickly. "Just the diesel." "Nonsense." Mordecai's smile somehow got wider. "Persephone makes the best coffee in 3 counties, and her sandwiches are to die for, on the house, of course. We like to take care of our late-night visitors." Persephone had already disappeared into what must have been a back room. Ulysses could hear her moving around, the clink of dishes, the hiss of a coffee maker. His stomach turned at the thought of eating anything from this place, but he didn't want to offend these people. Something about them suggested that would be a very bad idea. "Traveling far?" Mordecai asked, leaning forward on the counter. This close, Ulysses could smell him, a mixture of mothballs, sour milk, and something chemical he couldn't identify. "New Orleans," Ulysses said, handing over the money. "Long way still to go." Mordecai counted the bills slowly, his fingers caressing each one. Dangerous, these roads at night. All sorts of things can happen to a man alone. "I can take care of myself." "Oh, I'm sure you can. Big fellow like you." Mordecai's eyes traveled up and down Ulysses' frame in a way that made him feel like a piece of meat in a butcher's window. Still, accidents happen. Trucks break down. Tires blow out. And then where would you be? Stuck on some dark road with no help for miles. Persephone returned, carrying a tray with a cup of coffee and a wrapped sandwich. She set them on the counter with a soft smile that didn't touch those unblinking eyes. "Eat," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You'll need your strength." The coffee was black and steaming, but something about its color was off. Too thick, almost syrupy. The sandwich was wrapped in wax paper, and through it, Ulysses could see something dark and wet had soaked through. "That's very kind," he said, not touching either item. "But I really need to get going. Long drive ahead." "The coffee will help keep you awake," Mordecai said. His tone had changed slightly, become more insistent. "Persephone will be hurt if you don't at least try it." Ulysses looked at the girl. She was staring at him with those pale eyes, her head tilted slightly to one side like a bird watching a worm. "Please," she whispered. Against his better judgment, Ulysses picked up the coffee cup. It was heavier than it should have been, and warm in a way that felt organic rather than just hot. He brought it to his lips, pretending to sip while keeping them tightly closed. The liquid touched his lips and burned, not with heat, but with something chemical. He set the cup down quickly. "Delicious," he lied. "But I really should pump that diesel and get going." Mordecai's smile flickered for just a moment, replaced by something darker. Then it was back, wider than ever. "Of course. Pump number 2 is all yours, but do take the sandwich, for the road." Ulysses picked up the wrapped sandwich, having no intention of eating it. It was heavier than it looked, and had an odd, squishy consistency. "Thanks." He backed toward the door, not wanting to turn his back on either of them. Mordecai and Persephone watched him go, standing perfectly still like mannequins. The rattling bone sound came again as he pushed through the door. Outside, the night seemed even darker than before. Ulysses hurried to his truck, tossing the sandwich in a trash can beside the pump. He grabbed the diesel nozzle and started filling his tank, constantly looking over his shoulder at the store. Mordecai and Persephone stood at the window, watching him. They hadn't moved an inch. The pump seemed to take forever. 30 gallons. 35. Ulysses's hands were shaking now. Something was very wrong here. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to just go, forget the last 5 gallons. But he'd paid for 40, and leaving early might provoke them somehow. 38 gallons, 39. A hand touched his shoulder. Ulysses spun around, raising the heavy diesel nozzle like a weapon. Persephone stood there, having somehow crossed the distance from the store without making a sound. Up close, he could see her skin had a greenish tinge, like someone who'd been underwater too long. "You didn't drink the coffee," she said, her whisper carrying perfectly in the still air. "I did. It was very good." "No." She tilted her head further, an impossible angle that should have broken her neck. "You didn't drink it. That makes things difficult. Look, I don't want any trouble. I just want to leave. But you can't leave." Her smile widened, showing teeth that were filed to points. "Not yet. He's not ready." "Who's not ready?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached out one pale hand toward his face. Her fingers were ice cold and slightly damp, like something pulled from a refrigerator. Ulysses jerked back, and the pump clicked off. 40 gallons. Ulysses yanked the nozzle from his tank and slammed it back into the pump. Persephone stood between him and the truck's door, still smiling with those pointed teeth. Behind her, emerging from the shadows at the edge of the lot, Mordecai approached with slow, deliberate steps. "Leaving so soon?" Mordecai called out, his voice carrying unnaturally well in the thick air. "But the night is still young, and we so rarely have company. I paid for my fuel. We're done here." Ulysses kept his voice steady, though his heart was hammering against his ribs. "Are we?" Mordecai stopped beside Persephone, and in the harsh fluorescent light spilling from the station, Ulysses could see dark stains on the man's apron that he hadn't noticed before. Old stains, brown and rust-colored. "Move," Ulysses said, taking a step toward his truck. Neither of them budged. "You see," Mordecai continued as if Ulysses hadn't spoken, "we provide a service here, a very special service for travelers like yourself, those who drive these lonely roads in the dark hours. I don't need any service. I need to leave." "But you haven't finished your coffee," Persephone whispered. "It's special coffee, made just for you." Ulysses had dealt with plenty of dangerous situations in his years on the road. Aggressive drivers, would-be hijackers, even a few genuinely disturbed individuals. But this was different. These two weren't quite right in a way that went beyond simple mental illness or criminal intent. There was something fundamentally wrong about them, like they were wearing human shapes that didn't quite fit. "Get out of my way," he said, dropping his voice to a growl. "Now." Mordecai's smile finally disappeared. "I'm afraid we can't do that, Mr. Thistlethwaite." Ulysses froze. He hadn't told them his name. "Oh yes," Mordecai continued, noting his reaction. "We know all about you. Ulysses Thistlethwaite, 48 years old, divorced, no children, been driving the Memphis to New Orleans route for 8 years, lives alone in a double-wide trailer outside Memphis, no one expecting you for another." He checked a watch that looked older than the building. 6 hours. "How do you—" "We make it our business to know our customers," Persephone said. "The special ones. The ones who stop here in the deep night. The ones who won't be missed right away." The implication hit Ulysses like a sledgehammer. His hand went to his pocket, feeling for his cell phone, but Mordecai shook his head. "No signal out here. We make sure of that. It's just us, Mr. Thistlethwaite. Just us and the night and all the time in the world." Ulysses had always been a big man, had always used his size to his advantage when needed. He did so now, charging forward with all his considerable weight behind him. He caught Mordecai in the midsection, sending the thin man flying backward. Persephone tried to grab him, but he shoved her aside, her body surprisingly light, almost hollow feeling. He yanked open his truck's door and hauled himself up, slamming the locks immediately. His hands shook as he turned the key. The engine turned over once, twice, then died. "No," he muttered, trying again. The engine wouldn't catch. Through the windshield, he saw Mordecai getting to his feet, brushing dust from his stained apron. The man was laughing, a sound like grinding gears. Persephone had produced something from the folds of her dress, a small glass bottle filled with dark liquid. Ulysses tried the engine again. Nothing. They were approaching the truck now, taking their time. Why should they hurry? He wasn't going anywhere. Think, 23 years on the road, you've been in tight spots before. The CB radio. He grabbed the handset, switching through channels, hoping against hope that the interference had cleared. Static on every frequency but one. On channel 19, a voice faint but clear. "Anyone out there? This is Night Owl southbound on 49. Anyone copy?" "This is Ulysses Thistlethwaite," he nearly shouted into the handset. "I'm at Bumbershoot's gas, mile marker." He looked frantically for a marker, seeing none. "I don't know the marker, but it's between Clarksdale and Greenwood. I need help. Call the police. These people are—" The radio went dead. Not static. Dead. Like someone had cut the power. Mordecai stood at the driver's side window now, tapping on the glass with one long fingernail. The sound was like a pickaxe on ice. "Mr. Thistlethwaite," he called through the glass. "There's no point in making this difficult. We're very good at what we do. We've been doing it for a very long time." "The police will come," Ulysses said, though he wasn't sure the message had gotten through. "That trucker heard me." "Perhaps," Mordecai said. "But Bumbershoot's gas is very hard to find if you don't know exactly where to look. Funny how people drive right past it. Even funnier how they forget about it once they leave, if they leave." Persephone had climbed onto the running board on the passenger side. She held up the glass bottle, and Ulysses could see the liquid inside moving on its own, swirling and bubbling despite the bottle being still. "This would have been so much easier if you'd just drunk the coffee," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the window. "You would have felt sleepy, happy. You would have come with us willingly. Now we have to do this the hard way." She uncorked the bottle and poured its contents onto the passenger window. The liquid didn't run down like normal liquid should. Instead, it spread across the glass like something alive, and wherever it touched, the window began to smoke and bubble. Ulysses scrambled away from the passenger side as the window started to dissolve. The smell that filled the cab was indescribable, somewhere between burning plastic and rotting meat. Within seconds, there was a hole in the window large enough for Persephone to reach through. "Come on out," she cooed. "It's time to go downstairs." Downstairs? What did that mean? Ulysses grabbed the tire iron he kept behind his seat and swung it at her reaching arm. She pulled back with a hiss, but she was smiling wider than ever. "Feisty," she said. "I like that. They always taste better when they fight." "Taste?" The driver's side window exploded inward. Ulysses threw his arms up to protect his face from the shower of safety glass. When he lowered them, Mordecai's arm was reaching through, impossibly long, joints bending in ways that shouldn't be possible. The hand grabbed Ulysses by the throat. The grip was like iron, cutting off his air immediately. Ulysses struck with the tire iron, but Mordecai didn't even flinch. Black spots danced at the edges of his vision. "Sleep," Mordecai commanded, and his voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "Sleep and dream of dark places." Ulysses's last coherent thought before the darkness took him was that he should have listened to his instincts, should have driven on empty rather than stop at this place that shouldn't exist. When consciousness returned, it came slowly, like rising from deep water. Ulysses's head felt like it had been split open and poorly reassembled. His mouth tasted of copper and something chemical. When he tried to move, he found he couldn't. He was tied to a chair. No, not tied, strapped. Leather straps around his wrists, ankles, chest. The chair was metal, cold against his back through his shirt. The air smelled of dampness and decay, and something else. Something medical. Formaldehyde, maybe. His vision cleared gradually, and he wished it hadn't. He was in a basement, though basement seemed too ordinary a word for this place. The walls were stone, sweating moisture that ran in constant rivulets to a floor he couldn't quite see in the dim light. The ceiling was low, oppressively so, made of wooden beams that looked ready to collapse at any moment. But it was what hung from those beams that made his stomach lurch. Meat hooks. Dozens of them. Most were empty, but some held things he didn't want to identify. Shapes wrapped in plastic that were too familiar in their dimensions. A single bulb provided the only light, swinging slightly on its wire, making shadows dance across the walls. In those shadows, Ulysses could see shelves lined with jars. The contents of those jars seemed to move when the light hit them. "Ah, you're awake." Mordecai descended a wooden staircase that Ulysses hadn't noticed, each step creaking under his minimal weight. He'd removed his apron, revealing a shirt that might have been white once, but was now a map of old stains. In his hand, he carried a leather bag that clinked with each step. "Where am I?" Ulysses's voice came out as a croak. "Where?" "Still at Bumbershoot's gas, of course, just in the lower levels. The real Bumbershoots, you might say. The upstairs is just for show. Down here is where we do our actual business. What do you want?" "Want?" Mordecai set the bag on a metal table that Ulysses hadn't noticed. The sound it made suggested tools. Sharp tools. "We don't want anything, Mr. Thistlethwaite. We need. There's a difference." Persephone appeared from the shadows, having been there all along. She'd changed clothes, now wearing what looked like a nurse's uniform from the 1950s, complete with a little cap. It would have been almost comical if not for the dark stains on the white fabric and the way she moved, gliding rather than walking. "You see," she said, approaching with a syringe in her hand, "Mordecai and I have been here a very long time. Longer than you'd believe. This place, it's special. It exists in the spaces between. The gaps in reality that most people drive right past without noticing." "You're insane." "Perhaps," Mordecai said, unpacking his bag. Ulysses caught glimpses of metal instruments, each one clean and sharp and terrible. But insanity is such a limited concept. We prefer to think of ourselves as evolved, adapted to our environment. "The thing is," Persephone continued, now standing right beside him, the syringe catching the swinging light, "we need certain materials to maintain ourselves, to keep existing in this in-between place, and those materials are very specific. You're going to kill me." "Kill?" Mordecai looked genuinely offended. "Mr. Thistlethwaite, we're not murderers. We're collectors. There's an art to what we do, a purpose. We only take what we need," Persephone added. "And we're very careful, very precise. You might even survive. Some do. Some. Well, not many," Mordecai admitted. "But it has happened. There was a fellow in '83 who made it out missing only a kidney and part of his liver. Of course, he couldn't remember anything about this place afterward. The mind has ways of protecting itself from certain truths." Persephone raised the syringe, tapping it to remove air bubbles. "This will help with the pain, initially anyway. We're not cruel, Mr. Thistlethwaite. We take no pleasure in suffering." "Wait," Ulysses said, desperation creeping into his voice. "People know where I am. That trucker on the CB. Ah, yes, Night Owl." Mordecai smiled. "Lovely fellow. He stops here regularly. In fact, he's the one who suggested you might be coming our way tonight." The betrayal hit Ulysses harder than any physical blow. The trucker on the radio had been part of this. "Now," Persephone said, bringing the needle closer to his arm, "let's begin. We have so much work to do, and the night is passing quickly." The needle pierced his skin, and immediately Ulysses felt a strange warmth spreading through his arm. Not unpleasant at first, almost soothing. Then it reached his chest, and the warmth became heat. The heat became burning. He tried to scream, but his vocal cords wouldn't respond. His muscles locked rigid, every nerve firing at once. Through the agony, he could hear Mordecai and Persephone talking, their voices clinical and detached. Good reaction. The new formula works faster. Should we start with the usual sequence? No, I think we'll try something different this time. The market has been asking for specific items. The eyes, among other things. Ulysses's vision began to blur, but not from unconsciousness. Whatever they'd given him was keeping him awake, aware, but paralyzed. He could feel everything but do nothing. Mordecai approached with something silver and sharp. "Don't worry, Mr. Thistlethwaite. We've done this hundreds of times. You're in very capable hands." The basement door bloated inward. Sheriff Dale Hutchinson had been on the force for 32 years, but nothing had prepared him for what he found at Bumbershoot's Gas. He'd gotten the call from dispatch about a trucker in distress, and something about the location had nagged at him. He knew every road, every building in this county, but he couldn't place Bumbershoot's Gas. That should have been his first warning. He'd found it only because his deputy, young Tommy Brennan, remembered his grandfather mentioning the place. "Used to be out on the old highway," Tommy had said, before they rerouted 49 back in the 70s. But Grandpa said it closed down after some folks went missing. Yet here it was, lights blazing, looking very much open for business. Dale had called for backup immediately when he saw Ulysses's truck, but no sign of the driver. Something about the scene felt wrong. The way the shadows fell. The unnatural silence, the fact that his radio started crackling with static the moment he pulled into the lot. He'd found the basement door hidden behind a false panel in what looked like a storage room. The smell coming from below had been enough to make him draw his weapon. Now, standing in the doorway with Tommy behind him, both their weapons raised, Dale took in the nightmare before him. The trucker, had to be Ulysses Thistlethwaite based on the description, was strapped to a chair, his eyes wide with terror, but his body completely still. A man and woman stood frozen beside him, the man holding what looked like a surgical scalpel. "Sheriff's Department, drop the weapon and step away from him." Mordecai Bumbershoot. It had to be him, matching the property records Dale had hastily pulled up, turned slowly. His smile was wrong. Everything about him was wrong. Too tall, too thin, joints that seemed to have too many angles. "Sheriff Hutchinson," Mordecai said, as if they were old friends meeting at the grocery store. How unexpected. "We don't usually receive law enforcement at this hour." "I said drop the weapon." Mordecai looked at the scalpel in his hand as if surprised to find it there. This is just a tool, Sheriff. We're conducting business. Let him go now." Persephone moved then, not quickly, but with that strange gliding motion. Dale swung his weapon toward her. "Stop right there." She tilted her head. "You can't be here. This place doesn't exist for people like you. Lady, I don't know what kind of drugs you're on, but show him, Mordecai," she said softly. Mordecai's smile widened impossibly, his mouth stretching far beyond what human anatomy should allow. His teeth went on forever, row after row disappearing into darkness. His fingers began to elongate, the scalpel looking like a toy in his grotesque hand. Tommy made a strangled sound behind Dale. "You see," Mordecai said, his voice now coming from multiple directions at once, "we've been here much longer than your little town, Sheriff. Much longer than your state. We were here when the indigenous peoples walked these lands, and we'll be here long after your dust." The shadows in the corners of the basement began to move, reaching out like tentacles. The jars on the shelves rattled, their contents pressing against the glass. The temperature dropped 20 degrees in an instant. Dale had seen a lot in his 32 years. He'd seen murder, violence, the worst of humanity. But this was something else entirely. something that shouldn't exist. He fired. The bullet hit Mordecai center mass. The thin man looked down at the hole in his chest, then back up at Dale. No blood, just a dark void where the wound should be. "That was rude," Mordecai said. Then everything happened at once. The shadows surged forward. Tommy screamed. Persephone moved faster than anything human could move. Dale fired again and again, his training taking over even as his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. But through it all, he kept moving toward Ulysses. Whatever these things were, the trucker was still human, still alive, still needed help. Dale reached the chair just as Persephone's hand, now ending in claws that hadn't been there before, swiped at his head. He ducked, grabbed the straps holding Ulysses, and pulled. The leather was old, brittle. It snapped. "Tommy, the stairs!" His deputy was firing at the shadows, which seemed to recoil from the muzzle flashes more than the bullets. Together, they dragged the paralyzed trucker toward the stairs, Dale supporting most of Ulysses's considerable weight. "You can't leave," Mordecai said, his voice now a roar that shook dust from the ceiling. "No one leaves until we're finished." The stairs groaned under their combined weight. Behind them, Dale could hear pursuit. Not footsteps, but something worse. A wet, sliding sound like raw meat being dragged across stone. They burst through the false panel into the storage room, then into the main gas station. Through the windows, Dale could see his patrol car, but also something else. The building was changing. The walls were breathing. The ceiling was lowering. The exit seemed to be getting further away with each step. "Don't look at it," Dale shouted, not sure if he was talking to Tommy or himself. "Just move." They crashed through the front door into the Mississippi night. The normal, beautiful, mundane Mississippi night. Dale had never been so happy to feel humidity in his life. But when he turned back, Bumbershoot's gas was gone. Not destroyed. Not burning. Gone. Where the building had been, there was only an empty lot, overgrown with kudzu and littered with old beer cans. The only sign it had ever existed was Ulysses' truck, still parked beside pumps that were now just rusted metal poles sticking out of broken concrete. What the hell?" Tommy gasped, his hands shaking as he holstered his weapon. Dale didn't answer. He was checking Ulysses's pulse. Still strong, but the man's eyes were vacant, staring at nothing. Whatever they'd given him, whatever they'd done, he was alive, but not present. The radio in Dale's patrol car crackled to life. "Sheriff Hutchinson, what's your status?" He went silent for 43 minutes. 43 minutes? It had felt like 10 at most. "We need an ambulance at..." Dale paused. At where? The GPS in his car showed him in the middle of nowhere. No roads, no landmarks. Yet, here they were on solid asphalt. "We found the trucker," he said finally. "He needs immediate medical attention. Track my GPS and send help." "Copy that. But Sheriff, your GPS shows you in the middle of Wilson's cotton field." Dale looked around. The road was still there, clear as day, but through it, like a double exposure, he could see cotton plants waving in the night breeze. Ulysses groaned, the first sound he'd made. His lips moved, forming words Dale had to lean close to hear. "They're still here." Dale felt the hair on his neck stand up. He turned slowly, looking back at the empty lot. Mordecai and Persephone stood where the gas station door had been, translucent like ghosts but becoming more solid with each passing second. They weren't smiling anymore. "Get him in the car," Dale told Tommy. "Now." They loaded Ulysses into the back of the patrol car, Tommy climbing in with him. Dale got behind the wheel, started the engine, and floored it. In the rearview mirror, he watched the empty lot recede. But just before they turned onto what his GPS insisted wasn't a road, he saw Bumbershoots gas flicker back into existence, solid and real, its lights bright against the darkness. The hospital in Greenwood was 20 miles away. Dale made it in 12 minutes, running every stop sign, his lights and sirens clearing the way. He didn't slow down until they were under the harsh fluorescence of the emergency room entrance. The doctors took Ulysses immediately, though they struggled to identify what was in his system. "It's like nothing I've ever seen," Dr. Martinez told Dale later. "Some kind of paralytic agent, but mixed with compounds we can't identify. It's breaking down rapidly, though. He should recover full mobility within a few hours." Dale sat in the waiting room, trying to write his report. How did you explain what they'd seen? How did you file paperwork on a building that didn't exist? Tommy sat beside him, still shaking. "Sheriff, what were those things?" "I don't know, son, and I don't think I want to know." "Should we, do we go back? Try to find evidence?" Dale thought about those rows of jars, about the shapes hanging from hooks, about Mordecai's impossible teeth and Persephone's claws. "No, we report it to the state police, let them handle it. This is beyond us." But even as he said it, Dale knew no one would find anything. Bumbershoot's gas would be gone, hidden in whatever space between spaces it occupied, waiting for the next lonely traveler in the deep of night. 4 hours later, Ulysses woke up. His first conscious thought was that he was in a bed that wasn't his. Hospital, his mind supplied, recognizing the antiseptic smell and the beeping of machines. His second thought was that he was alive, which seemed impossible given his last memories. A sheriff sat in a chair beside his bed, badge glinting in the morning sun coming through the window. The man looked tired, aged somehow, as if he'd seen too much in too short a time. "Mr. Thistlethwaite," the sheriff said. "I'm Dale Hutchinson. How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by my own truck." Ulysses's voice was rough, throat dry. "What happened? How did you find me?" "You got a message out on the CB. Trucker named Big Mike heard you, called it in. Said you sounded scared out of your mind." "Big Mike?" Ulysses searched his memory, but the one who answered called himself Night Owl. He said, "Mordecai said he was part of it." Dale's expression darkened. "There's no trucker named Night Owl on the CB logs from last night. Big Mike was the only one on that channel. Says he heard you asking for help, gave your location as Bumbershoot's gas. But that doesn't make sense. I heard him clearly. Mr. Thistlethwaite, I need you to tell me everything you remember, everything you saw." So Ulysses did. He told Dale about the empty fuel tank that shouldn't have been empty, about the sign that appeared from nowhere, about Mordecai and Persephone, about the coffee he didn't drink, about the basement and what hung from those hooks. Dale listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding as if Ulysses' story confirmed something he'd witnessed himself. "Do you believe me?" Ulysses asked when he was done. "I was there, Mr. Thistlethwaite. I saw them. I saw what they were." Dale leaned forward. "But here's the thing. Officially, none of this happened. There's no Bumbershoot's gas in any county record. No Mordecai Bumbershoot. No Persephone Snodgrass. The state police went to the location this morning. They found nothing but an empty field that's been empty for 50 years. But my truck was found abandoned on a side road, out of gas. You were inside, unconscious, apparently suffering from exhaustion and dehydration. That's the official story." Ulysses stared at him. "They're going to get away with it. They're going to keep doing this to people. Maybe, maybe not." Dale stood up, placed a business card on the bedside table. That's my direct number. You remember anything else? You see anything else? You call me, day or night. You're going to try to stop them?" Dale was quiet for a moment. "My grandfather used to tell stories about places that weren't quite right, places that existed in the corners of the map, where reality was thin. I always thought he was just trying to scare us kids. Now," he shrugged, "now I think maybe I should have listened closer." 3 days later, Ulysses was released from the hospital. His company had sent another driver to retrieve his truck and load, writing the whole incident off as a medical emergency. They offered him 2 weeks paid leave, which he accepted without argument. But sitting in his empty trailer outside Memphis, staring at the walls, was worse than being on the road. He kept thinking about those jars on the shelves, about the shapes hanging from hooks, about how many travelers had stopped at Bumbershoot's Gas over the years and never left. On the 4th night, he called Sheriff Hutchinson. "Can't sleep either?" Dale asked without preamble. "Keep seeing them when I close my eyes. That basement. Those things they had down there." "Yeah." A long pause. "Listen, I've been doing some research, going through old missing persons cases. There's a pattern, Mr. Thistlethwaite. Every 3 to 5 years, truckers go missing along that stretch of Highway 49. Goes back decades, maybe longer. Why hasn't anyone noticed? Because they're smart about it. Never too many at once. Always people without strong local connections. Divorced men, drifters, people whose disappearance might not be noticed for days or weeks. Like me. Like you." Ulysses stared at the ceiling of his trailer. "We have to do something. I've been thinking the same thing. But what? Can't arrest something that doesn't officially exist. Can't shut down a building that isn't there. But it is there. We both know it is. Sometimes. When it wants to be." They were quiet for a moment, both lost in their own thoughts. "I'm going back," Ulysses said suddenly. "That's a terrible idea. Maybe. But I can't just sit here knowing they're out there waiting for the next person. I need to know more, need to understand what they are. You're going to get yourself killed. Or worse." Ulysses thought about Mordecai's impossible teeth, about Persephone's claws, about the things in those jars. "Maybe, but I'm going back." Dale sighed heavily. "If you're determined to do this fool thing, you're not going alone. Meet me tomorrow night. Midnight. The Greenwood truck stop off exit 142. Sheriff, you don't have to—" "Yes, I do. My county, my responsibility. Besides, Tommy hasn't been right since that night. Keeps talking about the shadows moving. Maybe if we can figure out what these things are, we can figure out how to stop them." The next night, Ulysses sat in his personal pickup at the Greenwood truck stop, watching other truckers fuel up and grab coffee, blissfully unaware of what waited out there in the dark. Dale's patrol car pulled up beside him just after midnight, but it was an unmarked Crown Victoria. Dale was out of uniform, dressed in jeans and a flannel shirt. "Trying to keep this unofficial?" Ulysses asked as Dale got into the passenger seat. "Very unofficial. As far as the department knows, I'm home with the flu." Dale pulled out a manila folder. "I found something interesting in the archives. Back in 1952, there was a report filed by a state trooper named William Garrett. He described finding a gas station that shouldn't exist, run by people who weren't quite right. Sound familiar? What happened to him? Died 3 days later. Car accident, supposedly. But his partner said Garrett had been terrified of something. Kept talking about things that wore human faces but weren't human. And nobody investigated? Oh, they did. Found nothing. Just like we found nothing." Dale pulled out an old photograph. "But Garrett took this before he died. The black and white photo showed a gas station that looked remarkably like Bumbershoots, though the sign read Newcomb's Service. Standing in front were two figures, one tall and thin, one shorter. Even in the grainy photo, something about them looked wrong. Different name, same place? That's what I'm thinking. They change identities every few decades, but they stay in the same spot. That spot that exists when it wants to. Ulysses started his truck. Then let's go find it. They drove through the thick Mississippi night, the headlights cutting through humidity so dense it looked like fog. Neither spoke as they approached the stretch of road where Ulysses had first seen the sign. He slowed down, scanning the darkness. Nothing. Just empty highway and cotton fields. They drove past where it should have been, turned around, drove past again. Still nothing. Maybe it only appears when... Dale stopped mid-sentence. There it was. The sign exactly where it had been before. Bumbershoots Gas, 2 miles, open 24 hours, truckers welcome. You see it? Ulysses asked. Yeah, though my eyes keep trying to slide off it, like they don't want to acknowledge it's there. They followed the sign to the exit, down the narrow access road. And there it was. Bumbershoots Gas, lights blazing, looking exactly as it had a week ago. Ulysses's hands tightened on the steering wheel. We could call for backup, Dale suggested, though his tone suggested he knew how pointless that would be. Would they even be able to find it? Probably not. They sat in the truck for a moment, engine idling, staring at the building. I brought some things, Dale said, reaching into a bag at his feet. He pulled out a camping flare, a bottle of lighter fluid, and a road flare. Figure if bullets don't work, maybe fire will. Worth a try. They got out of the truck, Dale tucking the items into his jacket. The same oppressive silence greeted them. The same absence of normal night sounds. The gas station waited, patient as a spider. Through the grimy windows they could see movement. Mordecai behind the counter, Persephone arranging items on a shelf, going through the motions of running a normal business. They know we're here, Ulysses said. Yeah, probably knew we were coming before we did. They approached the door. The bone rattle sound came when they pushed it open. Mordecai looked up with that too-wide smile. Mr. Thistlethwaite, how wonderful to see you again. We so rarely get repeat customers. We know what you are, Dale said, his hand resting on his holstered weapon despite knowing how useless it was. Do you? Mordecai tilted his head. How fascinating. And what, pray tell, are we? Monsters, Ulysses said simply. Persephone laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Monsters. Such a limited word. We're so much more than that. We're survivors, Mordecai said, his smile fading slightly. We've adapted to fill a niche. Every ecosystem needs its predators. And we're your prey. Some of you. The ones who won't be missed. The ones who drive alone through the dark places. Mordecai's fingers drummed on the counter, each tap echoing strangely. It's nothing personal, Mr. Thistlethwaite, simply survival. How many? Dale asked. How many people have you killed? Killed? Persephone moved closer, her feet still making that wrong sound on the floor. We don't kill, we harvest. There's a difference. The ones in the basement are preserved, maintained, part of our collection. Mordecai's eyes, which Ulysses now noticed had no whites, only graduated shades of black, focused on them intently. Would you like to see? Properly this time. We're not going anywhere with you, Dale said. Oh, but you are. Mordecai's smile returned, wider than ever. You see, Sheriff, you made a mistake coming here. Both of you did. This place, it only exists for certain people at certain times. And once you've been here twice, he spread his hands. Well, you become part of the inventory. The lights flickered. The shadows in the corners began to move. Run, Dale said quietly. They backed toward the door, but it wouldn't budge. The bone rattle had become a steady clicking, like teeth chattering. There's no leaving now, Persephone said. You're part of Bumbershoot's gas. You always have been, from the moment you first stopped here. The floor began to tilt. Not dramatically, just enough to make Ulysses feel off balance. The walls started that breathing motion he remembered from before. Dale pulled out the bottle of lighter fluid and the road flare. Ulysses, when I say run, you run. What are you? Dale sprayed lighter fluid across the counter, the shelves, the floor. Mordecai and Persephone stepped back, their expressions shifting from confidence to something else. Concern? Fear? You can't, Mordecai said. This place is more than wood and stone. You can't destroy an idea. Maybe not, Dale said, lighting the flare. But I can sure as hell try. He threw the flare. The lighter fluid caught immediately, flames racing across the counter, up the shelves. But these weren't normal flames. They burned wrong. Too bright, too many colors. The fire seemed to eat at reality itself, revealing things behind things. For a moment, Ulysses saw Bumbershoot's gas as it really was. Not a building, but a wound in the world. A gap where something else leaked through. Mordecai and Persephone weren't screaming. They were changing. Their human disguises burning away like paper, revealing something underneath that Ulysses' mind refused to process. Too many angles. Too many teeth. Too many eyes. The door burst open. Run! Dale shouted. They ran. Behind them, Bumbershoot's gas was consuming itself, folding inward like a piece of paper being crumpled by an invisible hand. The sound it made wasn't an explosion or a collapse. It was like reality itself was screaming. They made it to the truck, Ulysses gunning the engine before Dale's door was even closed. In the rearview mirror, he saw the gas station flicker, existing and not existing simultaneously caught between states. Then it was gone. Not burned down, not destroyed, just absent. They drove in silence until they reached the highway, then Dale finally spoke. It's not over. I know. They're not dead. Things like that, I don't think they can die. But maybe we hurt them. Maybe we bought some time. Maybe. They drove back to Greenwood as dawn was breaking. The Mississippi sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Normal colors. Safe colors. What do we do now? Ulysses asked. We watch, we wait, and we make sure people know, even if they don't believe us. You think it'll come back? Dale was quiet for a long moment. My grandfather, he used to say evil was like kudzu. You could cut it back, burn it out, but unless you got every last root, it would just grow back stronger. So, we keep watching. We keep watching. Ulysses dropped Dale back at his car. They shook hands, an understanding passing between them that didn't need words. 2 weeks later, Ulysses went back to trucking. He changed routes, avoiding Highway 49 entirely. But sometimes, late at night, when he was driving through those empty stretches between nowhere and nowhere else, he'd see signs that shouldn't exist. Exits that weren't on any map. He never stopped, not once, but he started keeping a bottle of lighter fluid in his cab. Just in case. 6 months passed. Then Dale called. There's been another disappearance. Trucker named William Hayworth. Last seen heading south on 49. Same area? No, about 50 miles north. Different name on the police report. Place called Wickham's Fuel Stop. Ulysses thought about Mrs. Wickham's miracle tonic, advertised in that dirty window. They're back. They never left, just moved, changed faces. What do? Same thing we've been doing. We watch, we warn who we can, and we hope that's enough. But Ulysses knew it wasn't enough. Somewhere out there on some lonely stretch of highway, Mordecai and Persephone, or whatever they were calling themselves now, were waiting, patient as spiders, hungry as the dark. The road stretched on, endless and unforgiving, and somewhere on it, Bumbershoot's gas waited for its next victim. Some nights, Ulysses still dreams about that basement, about the jars on the shelves, about the things hanging from hooks. He wakes up gasping, checking his arms for needle marks, his body for missing pieces. He's whole. He's alive. He escaped. But he knows that somewhere out there, tonight, right now, another trucker is seeing a sign that shouldn't exist, pulling into a gas station that isn't on any map, meeting proprietors who wear human faces but aren't human at all. He keeps Dale's number programmed in his phone, keeps that bottle of lighter fluid in his cab, and he keeps driving, because stopping means remembering, and remembering means accepting that things like Bumbershoot's gas exist, things that hunger, things that wait, things that harvest. The highway stretches on, and Ulysses Thistlethwaite drives through the night, knowing that he's one of the lucky ones. He got away. Most don't. And somewhere in the spaces between spaces, in a gas station that exists when it wants to, Mordecai Bumbershoot is smiling his too-wide smile, and Persephone Snodgrass is making coffee that no one should ever drink. Waiting. Always waiting. The road goes on forever, and the darkness is patient. Thaddeus Poindexter had been driving for 16 hours straight, which was against regulations, but the load of pharmaceuticals he was hauling from Chicago to Jackson had to arrive by morning, or his company would lose the contract. At 53 years old, with 31 years behind the wheel, Thaddeus knew how to push his limits. He knew when to use caffeine, when to stop for a power nap, and when his body was telling him he absolutely had to rest. That moment came at 3:22 a.m., on a stretch of Highway 55 just south of Grenada, Mississippi. The rest area appeared in his headlights like an oasis in the darkness. It wasn't much, just a small parking area with restroom facilities, a few picnic tables, and a cluster of vending machines that probably hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. But it had spaces for trucks, and more importantly, it was off the main highway where the state troopers wouldn't hassle him about his logs. Thaddeus guided his Kenworth into the lot, pleased to find it mostly empty. Just 2 other rigs parked at the far end, their running lights creating small pools of amber in the darkness, and surprisingly what looked like a family camping setup near the picnic area. That was odd. Who camps at a rest area? As he set his air brakes and killed the engine, Thaddeus got a better look. It was definitely a family. He could see a small dome tent, one of those portable camping chairs, and what might have been a Coleman lantern casting a weak circle of light. A minivan was parked nearby, its hood up. Broken down, probably. Poor folks. Thaddeus had been on the road long enough to develop a sixth sense about things. That little voice that told him when a way station was about to be open, when weather was going to turn bad, when something just wasn't right. That voice was whispering now, but he was too tired to pay it much attention. He climbed down from his cab, his knees protesting after so many hours of sitting. The Mississippi humidity hit him immediately, thick and oppressive even in the pre-dawn hours. The air smelled of kudzu and diesel exhaust, and something else, something sweet and cloying that made his stomach turn slightly. The restroom was his first priority. The building was cinder block construction, painted that institutional beige that seemed mandatory for all government structures. The men's room door hung slightly askew on its hinges, and the fluorescent light inside flickered erratically, creating a strobe effect that made his tired eyes water. Business completed, Thaddeus headed to the vending machines, hoping against hope that one might actually work. He had a cooler full of sandwiches in his truck, but a cold Coke would hit the spot right about now. "Excuse me, sir?" The voice came from behind him, high and tremulous. Thaddeus turned to find a young boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, standing in the circle of light from the vending machines. The kid was thin, almost skeletal, with sandy brown hair that looked like it hadn't seen shampoo in weeks. His clothes, jeans and a t-shirt with some cartoon character Thaddeus didn't recognize, were dirty and too small for him. "Hey there, son," Thaddeus said carefully. "You okay? It's awful late for you to be up." "My dad sent me," the boy said. There was something wrong with his voice, something flat and rehearsed about it. "Our van broke down. He wanted to know if you might have any tools we could borrow." Thaddeus glanced over at the minivan. He could see figures moving around it now, a tall man and a woman, both working under the hood by the light of that Coleman lantern. "What kind of tools?" Thaddeus asked. He said, "A lug wrench and maybe jumper cables?" That didn't make sense. If they needed a lug wrench, they'd be changing a tire, not working under the hood, and jumper cables wouldn't help if they were truly broken down. They'd need another vehicle to jump from. "Tell you what," Thaddeus said, that little warning voice getting louder. "Let me grab my flashlight and I'll come take a look. Maybe I can help." The boy's face went through a series of expressions. Relief, then something else. Something that looked almost like fear. "You don't have to do that," he said quickly. "Just the tools would be fine." "Nonsense. I've got some time to kill while my logs reset. Happy to help." Thaddeus headed back to his truck, very aware that the boy was following him. Not walking beside him like a normal kid would, but staying about 10 feet back, matching his pace exactly. It was creepy, like being stalked by a small, underfed predator. He grabbed his toolbox and his maglite from the cab. The weight of the toolbox was reassuring. A nice, heavy wrench made a decent weapon if needed. Not that he expected to need it. Probably just a family down on their luck, desperate enough to be camping in a rest area. As they approached the minivan, Thaddeus got his first good look at the parents. The man was tall and painfully thin, with the same sandy hair as the boy, but shot through with premature gray. He wore khakis and a button-down shirt that had seen better days. The woman was shorter, rounder, with mousy brown hair pulled back in a ponytail. Her dress looked like something from a thrift store, faded flowers on cheap fabric. But it was their faces that made Thaddeus's steps slow. They were both smiling, but the smiles didn't reach their eyes. Their eyes were flat, dead, like looking at mannequins. "Ichabod Widdershins," the man said, extending a hand that Thaddeus reluctantly shook. The grip was weak, clammy. "This is my wife Cordelia, and you've met our boy, Ptolemy." Who names their kid Ptolemy? Thaddeus thought, but he kept his expression neutral. "Thaddeus Poindexter. Heard you folks are having some trouble." "Indeed we are, Mr. Poindexter. Indeed we are." Ichabod's voice had an odd cadence to it, like English wasn't his first language even though he had no discernible accent. "The van just died on us. We were heading to Florida for vacation when it just stopped." Thaddeus flicked on his maglite and leaned under the hood. What he saw didn't make sense. The engine was cold. Had been cold for hours from the look of it. There was dust on components that should have been hot if they'd been driving recently. And there was damage. Old damage. The alternator was cracked, the battery terminals were corroded beyond use, several belts were missing entirely. This van hadn't run in months, maybe years. "When did you say it broke down?" Thaddeus asked, straightening up. "Oh, just a few hours ago," Cordelia said, her voice as emotionlessly pleasant as her husband's. "We've been trying everything." Thaddeus looked around the rest area more carefully. No luggage in the van that he could see. No coolers, no road trip supplies. The tent looked old, mildewed, and now that he was closer, that sweet, cloying smell was stronger. It seemed to be coming from them. "Look, folks," he said, taking a step back. "This engine's been dead a long time. I can't help you with this." "Are you sure?" Ichabod asked, moving closer. Too close. That smell washed over Thaddeus, decay and sweetness, like flowers left too long in a vase. "Maybe, if you looked again." "I'm sure." Thaddeus gripped his toolbox tighter. "I need to get back to my truck now." "But you just got here," Cordelia said. She'd moved too, positioning herself between Thaddeus and his truck. The boy, Ptolemy, had disappeared somewhere. "Nevertheless, I need to go." "We're very hungry," Ichabod said. And something in the way he said it made every hair on Thaddeus's arms stand up. "We haven't eaten in so long." "There's a truck stop about 10 miles south," Thaddeus said, trying to edge around Cordelia. "They're open 24 hours. "We can't leave," Cordelia said simply. "The van doesn't work, remember?" "Then call someone. AAA, a tow truck, somebody." "Our phone died too," Ichabod said. He was smiling wider now, and Thaddeus could see his teeth were wrong. Too sharp, too many of them. "Everything just keeps dying around us. It's the strangest thing." Thaddeus decided he'd had enough. He pushed past Cordelia, not gently, and started walking quickly toward his truck. He could hear them following, their footsteps oddly synchronized. "Mr. Poindexter," Ichabod called. "You really shouldn't leave. It's not safe. I'll take my chances." "The boy likes you," Cordelia added. "He so rarely likes anyone." Thaddeus was almost running now. His truck was just 50 feet away, 40, 30. Ptolemy stepped out from behind Thaddeus's truck. No, that wasn't possible. The kid had been behind them. There was no way he could have gotten around without Thaddeus seeing him. "Please don't go," the boy said, and his voice was different now, older, hungrier. "We need you. Get out of my way, kid." Ptolemy tilted his head, that same unnatural angle Thaddeus had seen before. "You're not very nice? Father said you'd be nice?" "Your father doesn't know me. He knows everyone who stops here," Ptolemy said. "He's been watching you since you pulled in. We all have." Thaddeus looked back. Ichabod and Cordelia had stopped about 20 feet away, standing perfectly still, watching, waiting. "What do you want?" Thaddeus asked. "Just to talk," Ichabod said. "To share a meal. To be a family." "You have a family." "Not complete," Cordelia said. "Never complete. People keep leaving." Thaddeus gripped a wrench from his toolbox. "I'm leaving too. Get out of my way or I'll go through you." Ptolemy laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You can't hurt us, Mr. Poindexter. We're already hurt. We've been hurt for so long." The lights in the rest area began to flicker. The two trucks at the far end of the lot remained dark and silent. Had they been running before? Thaddeus couldn't remember. "Last chance," Thaddeus said, raising the wrench. The family exchanged glances, some kind of silent communication passing between them. Then Ptolemy stepped aside. "Go then," Ichabod said. "But you'll be back. They always come back." Thaddeus didn't respond. He yanked open his truck door, threw his toolbox inside, and climbed up. His hands shook as he turned the key. The engine turned over once, twice, then caught. Thank God. He released the brakes and started to pull out. In his mirrors, he could see the family standing in a line, watching him go. They weren't moving, weren't waving, just standing there like scarecrows. Then the engine died. No, no, no. Thaddeus turned the key again. Nothing. not even a click. He looked in the mirror again. The family was walking toward his truck now, moving in perfect unison like they were all controlled by the same puppeteer. Thaddeus tried the engine again. Still nothing. They were at his door now. Ichabod knocked politely. "Mr. Poindexter, it seems you're having some trouble. Get away from my truck." "We can help," Cordelia called up. "We're very good with broken things. We understand them." "Because you break them," Thaddeus shouted. "No," Ptolemy said, his young voice carrying clearly. "They break themselves when they get too close to us. It's not our fault. Nothing's our fault." Thaddeus grabbed his cell phone. No signal. Of course. The CB radio was his last hope. He grabbed the handset, switching to channel 19. Break, this is Thaddeus Poindexter at the rest area south of Grenada on 55. I need immediate assistance. Please, anyone. I need help." Static. Then, faintly, a voice. "Can't hear. Breaking up. Rest area south of Grenada," Thaddeus shouted. "3 people. Something's wrong with them. Send police." The radio went dead. Ichabod knocked again. "Mr. Poindexter, please. We don't want to force you, but you're being very rude. We just want to have dinner together, like a family." "I'm not your family." "You could be," Cordelia said. "We've had so many families over the years. Truckers make the best families. They understand loneliness." Thaddeus looked around his cab frantically. He had a tire iron behind the seat, a knife in the glove box, but somehow he knew conventional weapons wouldn't help. These people, if they were people, weren't operating by normal rules. The passenger window began to fog up, even though the air conditioning wasn't running. In the condensation, words began to form as if written by an invisible finger. "Let us in." "No," Thaddeus whispered. More words appeared. "You're already ours." The fog spread to all the windows. More messages. "We've been waiting so hungry. Join the family. Father knows best." Then the driver's side window exploded inward. Glass showered across Thaddeus, tiny crystals catching the rest area's fluorescent lights like deadly snow. He threw his arms up to protect his face, feeling sharp points bite into his forearms. Through the destroyed window, Ichabod's arm reached in, impossibly long, joints bending in ways that defied anatomy. "Don't make this difficult, Mr. Poindexter," Ichabod said, his voice calm and reasonable even as his grotesque arm groped for the door lock. "We've done this so many times. It's easier if you don't fight." Thaddeus grabbed the tire iron from behind his seat and brought it down on Ichabod's arm with all his strength. The sound it made wasn't the crack of breaking bone or the thud of impact on flesh. It was like hitting a bag of wet sand, dull, yielding, wrong. Ichabod didn't even flinch. His fingers found the lock, clicked it open. The door swung wide, and Cordelia was there, smiling that empty smile. "Come along now. Dinner's getting cold." "There is no dinner." Thaddeus swung the tire iron at her, but she moved with inhuman speed, catching it mid-swing. Her grip was like a vice, and the metal began to bend under her fingers. "There's always dinner," she said. "We're always hungry. That's what happens when you've been empty for so long." Ptolemy appeared on the passenger side, his child's face pressed against the window. "I can come through there too," he said, his breath fogging the glass. "I can come through anywhere. We all can. We learned how." "What are you?" Thaddeus asked, still struggling to pull the tire iron free from Cordelia's grip. "We're a family," Ichabod said. "We were a family, driving to Florida for vacation, just like I said." That part was true. "It was 1907, Cordelia added, her grip never loosening. Ptolemy was so excited. His first time seeing the ocean. "But we never made it," Ptolemy said from the passenger window. "We stopped here just like you." "There were others here," Ichabod continued. "Others who were hungry. So hungry. They said they just wanted to share a meal, to be a family for a little while." "We were naive," Cordelia said. "We thought we were helping. We thought we were being good Christians, sharing with those less fortunate." "They killed you," Thaddeus said, understanding beginning to dawn. "No," Ichabod said. "Worse. They made us like them, passed on their hunger, their need. Then they left, finally satisfied, finally able to move on. But we couldn't leave. We can never leave." "The van," Cordelia said, finally releasing the tire iron which fell to the ground with a clang. "It's our anchor. As long as it's here, we're here. And as long as we're hungry, we stay hungry. But if we feed," Ptolemy added, his child's voice carrying ancient weariness, "if we finally, truly feed, maybe we can leave too. Maybe we can finally continue our vacation." "I won't let you," Thaddeus said, though he knew how hollow the threat was. "You don't have to let us," Ichabod said. "It just happens. You get close to us, you become part of us. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked." Thaddeus felt it then, a pull, like invisible threads connecting him to them. He looked at his hands and saw they were beginning to pale, the color draining from his skin. "No!" He lunged for the ignition, turning the key desperately. For a moment, nothing. Then, miraculously, the engine roared to life. "That won't help," Cordelia said sadly. "You can drive away, but you'll come back. They always come back. The hunger brings them back." Thaddeus slammed the truck into gear, not caring that Ichabod's arm was still partially through the window. The thin man was dragged for several feet before his arm simply detached. No blood, no scream of pain. The arm fell to the ground and dissolved into what looked like dust. In the mirrors, Thaddeus saw Ichabod standing there, his arm already regrown, waving goodbye with it. He drove, pushing the truck as hard as he dared, his speedometer climbing past 70, 80. The rest area receded into darkness behind him, but that pulling sensation didn't fade. If anything, it got stronger. 5 miles down the road, the engine sputtered. "No, come on, not now." 10 miles, and it died completely. Thaddeus coasted to the shoulder, his hands shaking as he tried to restart the engine. Nothing. He checked his fuel gauge, 3/4 full. Battery gauge showed full charge. Everything should be working. He grabbed his cell phone. Still no signal, even though he could see a cell tower in the distance, its red lights blinking in the pre-dawn darkness. The CB radio produced only static. Then, in his side mirror, he saw them, walking along the highway toward him, not hurrying, just walking with that synchronized gait. They were a mile away, half a mile, closer. How were they moving so fast? Thaddeus tried the engine again. It turned over. He nursed it, giving it gas gently, and it caught. He pulled back onto the highway, accelerating smoothly. In the mirror, the family stopped walking. They just stood there on the side of the road, watching, waiting. 3 more miles, and the engine died again. This time, when they appeared in his mirrors, they were closer to start with. Only a 1/4 mile back. "This is impossible," Thaddeus muttered, trying the ignition again. This time it took longer to start, and when it did, the engine sounded rough, labored. He made it another 2 miles before it died for the 3rd time. They were right behind him now. He could see their faces clearly in the mirror. Those empty smiles, those hungry eyes. A knock on his door. "Mr. Poindexter," Ichabod called. "This is pointless. You're only prolonging the inevitable." Every time you run, you get weaker, Cordelia added. And we get stronger. That's how the hunger works. Just give in, Ptolemy said. It doesn't hurt, not really. The hunger hurts more than the feeding. Thaddeus looked at his hands. They were definitely paler now, and he could see the veins through the skin, dark and prominent. He felt cold, despite the Mississippi heat. And worse, he felt empty. A gnawing, aching emptiness in his gut that had nothing to do with food. The engine wouldn't even turn over now. I've called for help, Thaddeus lied. The police are coming. No one's coming, Ichabod said. No one ever comes. This stretch of road, it's special. People drive through it all the time, but they never really see it, never remember it, unless they stop at the rest area, unless they meet us. Then other truckers, the 2 trucks at the rest area? Cordelia interrupted. They've been there for 3 months. The drivers are still in their cabs, still sitting there, still trying to leave, but they can't. They're part of the family now, even if they won't admit it. 3 months? Those trucks had looked normal, just parked for the night. You're lying. Go back and look, Ptolemy suggested. Go back and see. You'll understand then. Against every instinct, Thaddeus found himself considering it. The pull was stronger now, not just physical, but mental. The rest area seemed safe, comfortable. The family seemed reasonable. They were just hungry. He understood hunger. That's it, Ichabod encouraged. You're beginning to understand. The hunger isn't evil, it just is. We just are. We didn't choose this, Cordelia added. But we've accepted it. And once you accept it, it's not so bad. You're never alone. You always have family. Thaddeus's hand moved toward the door handle without his conscious control. He watched it, fascinated and horrified as his fingers gripped the handle. That's good, Ptolemy said. Just come out. Come back with us. Have dinner. The door opened. The Mississippi night air rushed in, thick with humidity and that sweet, cloying smell of decay. But underneath it was something else. The smell of food. Real food. His stomach, which he hadn't realized was cramping with hunger, twisted demandingly. When did you last eat? Ichabod asked gently. Really eat, not those cold sandwiches in your cooler. Real food, hot food, family food? Thaddeus tried to remember. The truck stop in Memphis? That had been... how long ago? Hours? Days? Time seemed fuzzy, uncertain. He stepped down from the cab, his legs shaky. The family surrounded him, but not threateningly. They were just there, close, warm despite the coldness he felt. Come, Cordelia said, taking his arm. Her touch was gentle, almost motherly. Let's go home. Home, the rest area. Yes, that made sense. They walked along the highway, and Thaddeus found his stride matching theirs perfectly. Left foot, right foot, in perfect synchronization. It felt natural. It felt right. Cars passed them, but none slowed. None stopped. It was like they were invisible. They can't see us, Ichabod explained. Not unless they're meant to. Not unless they're hungry too. The rest area appeared ahead, its lights welcoming in the darkness. As they got closer, Thaddeus could see the 2 trucks Cordelia had mentioned. She was right. They looked different now. Older, covered in dust and pollen. One had a tree branch lying across its hood that looked like it had been there for weeks. Look in the cabs, Ptolemy suggested. Thaddeus approached the nearest truck, peering through the driver's side window. In the dim light, he could see a figure sitting in the driver's seat. Not moving, not dead, just sitting, waiting. The man's eyes were open, staring straight ahead at nothing. He's been like that for 3 months, Cordelia said. He fought longer than most, kept trying to leave, kept making it a little farther each time, but eventually he understood. The hunger always wins. Is he alive? Define alive, Ichabod said. He exists, he continues. That's a kind of life. Thaddeus moved to the second truck. This driver was slumped over the steering wheel, but as Thaddeus watched, the man's fingers twitched. Still in there, still aware. "This will be me," Thaddeus said. It wasn't a question. "Not necessarily," Cordelia said. "Some join the family properly, help us feed, help us find others who can satisfy the hunger. Those ones don't end up in their trucks. They get to move, to hunt, to be part of something. All I have to do is help you hurt others." "Not hurt," Ichabod corrected. "Share. Share the hunger. Spread it. That's all we do. We're not monsters, Mr. Poindexter. We're just hungry. And now, so are you." He was right. The emptiness in Thaddeus's gut was growing, becoming all-consuming. It wasn't just hunger for food. It was hunger for warmth, for connection, for something he couldn't quite name. "Feel it," Ptolemy said, taking Thaddeus's hand. The boy's skin was cold, but somehow that felt normal now. "Feel how empty you are. Feel how much you need." "I need," Thaddeus started, but couldn't finish. What did he need? "You need to feed," Cordelia said. "And to feed, you need to hunt. And to hunt, you need family. I don't want to hurt anyone." "Neither did we," Ichabod said. "But want and need are different things. You'll learn that. Everyone learns that eventually." They led him to the picnic area, where their tent and lantern created a small circle of light. Up close, Thaddeus could see the tent was ancient, full of holes, more suggestion than shelter. The lantern's light was wrong, too. It didn't illuminate so much as emphasize the darkness around it. "Sit," Cordelia said, gesturing to one of the picnic tables. Thaddeus sat. The wood was soft with rot, but it held his weight. "Now," Ichabod said, sitting across from him, "let's discuss how this works. The hunger, it needs to be fed, but not with food. Food doesn't help. We've tried. What it needs is essence, life force, spirit, whatever you want to call it. You're vampires?" "No," Ptolemy laughed. That broken glass sound again. "Vampires drink blood. We take something else, something harder to define. We take the part that makes people want to keep going, keep driving, keep living. We take their momentum. And once it's gone, they become like us," Cordelia said. "Hungry, empty, searching for something to fill the void. Or they become like them," Ichabod added, gesturing to the trucks. "Stuck, unable to move forward, unable to go back, caught between." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you have a choice," Ichabod said. "You can help us, become truly part of the family, and maintain some measure of mobility. Or you can resist and end up like them. Still hungry, but unable to do anything about it. Some choice." "It's more than we had," Cordelia said bitterly. "The ones who made us, they didn't explain anything. They just took and took until we were empty, then left us to figure it out ourselves. At least we're giving you the courtesy of understanding," Ptolemy added. Thaddeus felt his phone buzz in his pocket. Impossible. There was no signal. He pulled it out. One bar flickering. A text message from a number he didn't recognize. "Get out now. They're not what they seem." The family's expressions changed instantly. Ichabod's empty smile twisted into something predatory. Cordelia's motherly demeanor evaporated like morning mist. Ptolemy's child face rippled, showing something underneath that was definitely not a child. "Who's texting you?" Ichabod demanded, reaching for the phone. Thaddeus pulled it back, but his movements were sluggish, like moving through syrup. Another text appeared. "They're feeding off your fear. The hunger isn't real. Fight it." "Give me the phone," Cordelia said, her voice no longer gentle. "No." A third text. "The trucks aren't real. The drivers aren't there. Look again." Thaddeus turned toward the trucks. For a moment they flickered, there 1 second, gone the next, then back again, like a bad signal on an old television. "Don't look at them," Ptolemy said urgently. "Look at us. Focus on the family." But Thaddeus kept staring at the trucks. The more he concentrated, the more they wavered. Through them, he could see the empty rest area. No vehicles at all except his own truck and the ancient minivan. "It's an illusion," he breathed. "No," Ichabod said, gripping Thaddeus's shoulder. His touch burned cold. "The illusion is thinking you can leave. The illusion is believing you're anything other than ours." Another text. "I'm in the trees. When I signal, run to your truck." Thaddeus scanned the tree line. There, a flash of light. Someone with a flashlight. "Who's out there?" Cordelia hissed, her head swiveling unnaturally far to scan the darkness. "Someone who knows what you are," Thaddeus said, feeling strength return to his limbs. The hunger was still there, but weaker. Manageable. "Impossible," Ichabod said. "No one remembers us. No one escapes to tell." The flashlight flashed 3 times. The signal. Thaddeus ran. He'd never moved so fast in his life. His 53-year-old body suddenly capable of sprinting like he was 20 again. Behind him, the family shrieked. Not human sounds, but something else. Like radio static mixed with feedback. His truck was 50 feet away, 40, 30. Ptolemy materialized in front of him. Not ran there, not jumped there. Simply appeared. "You can't leave, Mr. Poindexter. You're part of the family now." The boy's face was melting, revealing something underneath that hurt to look at. Too many angles, too many teeth, too much hunger given form. A bottle sailed through the air, smashing against Ptolemy. The liquid inside splashed across him, and where it touched he started smoking. "Gasoline and holy water," a woman's voice shouted. "Move your ass, trucker!" Thaddeus didn't need to be told twice. He dodged around the screaming thing that had been Ptolemy and reached his truck. The engine started on the first try. A woman emerged from the trees, mid-40s, athletic build, carrying what looked like a super soaker. She was backing toward him, spraying arc of liquid at Ichabod and Cordelia, who were advancing but carefully, avoiding the spray. "Get in!" Thaddeus shouted. She dove into the passenger side just as Cordelia lunged. The woman slammed the door, catching Cordelia's fingers. Another inhuman shriek. "Drive! Now!" Thaddeus floored it. The truck lurched forward, tires squealing. In the mirrors, he could see the family standing in the road, watching them go. But this time they weren't following. "Keep driving," the woman said, pulling out a cell phone, a real one with full bars. "Don't stop for at least 20 miles. Who are you?" "Dr. Sarah. I study anomalous phenomena. I've been tracking that family for 2 years. They're not human. Not anymore." She was typing rapidly on her phone. "They were once back in 1987, just like they said. The Widdershins family from Akron, Ohio, disappeared on their way to Disney World. But what got them, that was much older." "What got them?" "We don't have a name for it. It's a kind of psychic parasite that feeds on human energy. It takes families, usually. corrupts them, turns them into lures for other victims. The Widdershins had been operating from that rest area for over 30 years. But the rest area looked normal when I pulled in. Perception filter. The parasite can manipulate what people see, make them believe things that aren't true. The hunger you felt? Psychosomatic. The trucks? Projections. Even the family's appearance is mostly illusion. Mostly? There are physical bodies, or what's left of them. The parasite keeps them animate, but they're essentially puppets. Thaddeus's hands shook on the steering wheel. Those texts. That was you? I've been monitoring that rest area. I have equipment that alerts me when someone stops there at night. I've saved 14 truckers in the past year, but I can't save them all. Why doesn't someone shut it down, close the rest area? Dr. Sarah laughed bitterly. I've tried, filed reports, contacted authorities, but the parasite's influence extends beyond the rest area. People forget, documents disappear, even video evidence becomes corrupted. The only ones who remember are those who've encountered it directly. So it just keeps happening. Yes, unless we find a way to kill the parasite itself, not just its puppets. They drove in silence for several miles. Thaddeus kept checking his mirrors, expecting to see the family following, but the road remained empty. Pull over at the next truck stop, Dr. Sarah said. A real one, with lots of lights and people. 20 minutes later, they were parked at a Flying J, surrounded by other trucks, bathed in sodium lights. Normal, safe. Dr. Sarah pulled out a tablet, showing Thaddeus a map marked with red dots. These are all the locations where similar entities operate. Rest areas, abandoned gas stations, old motels, places where travelers stop, where people are vulnerable. There are more of them? Dozens that I know of, probably hundreds I don't. She zoomed in on one particular cluster. Mississippi has 7 confirmed sites. That family is just one of them. Jesus Christ. The thing is, Mr. Poindexter, you're marked now. The parasite has your scent, so to speak. It knows your psychic signature. What does that mean? It means you'll be more susceptible to others like it. You'll see them where other people don't. They'll be drawn to you. You're saying I'm cursed. I'm saying you're aware. That's both a curse and a gift. She pulled out a business card. My number. If you encounter anything else, call me, day or night. What am I supposed to do? I'm a trucker. I have to drive these roads. You learn to recognize the signs. The 2 perfect families at rest areas. The helpful strangers who appear at just the right moment. The places where your electronics stop working. The spots where time seems to move differently. And if I recognize them, you keep driving, you don't stop, and you warn others if you can. Thaddeus took the card, noting the string of credentials after her name. You're a real doctor? Psychiatrist originally, until I encountered something like that family 15 years ago. Lost my husband to them, or something like them. Been hunting them ever since. I'm sorry. Don't be. He's not dead. He's like them now, somewhere. I keep hoping I'll find him, find a way to reverse it. But so far, she shrugged. The family said the hunger never goes away. For them, no. But you're not fully turned. The connection was broken before it could complete. You'll feel echoes of it, moments of emptiness, of craving something you can't name. But it will fade. Mostly. Mostly. You'll always be sensitive to them now. You'll feel them before you see them. Consider it an early warning system. Thaddeus's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You can't run forever. Family is family. Dr. Sarah looked at it and frowned. They shouldn't be able to do that, not from this distance. Another text. We're still hungry. Then another. So are you. And he was. Despite everything, despite knowing it wasn't real, Thaddeus felt that gnawing emptiness returning. It's not real, Dr. Sarah said firmly. It's just an echo. Fight it. But the hunger grew stronger. Thaddeus gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Something's wrong, Dr. Sarah said, looking at her equipment. They shouldn't have this much influence unless... She turned to look out the back window of the truck. Oh no. Thaddeus looked in his mirror. A minivan was parked 3 spaces behind them. Old, rusty, with its hood up. They followed us. No, they were already here, waiting. Dr. Sarah grabbed her gear. Mr. Poindexter, we need to move, now. But when Thaddeus tried to start the truck, nothing happened. The engine was dead. They're getting stronger, Dr. Sarah said. Learning. Adapting. Through the windshield, Thaddeus could see them approaching. Not just the Widdershins family, but others. A dozen figures, all moving with that same synchronized gait, all wearing those empty smiles. How many families have they turned? Thaddeus whispered. Too many, Dr. Sarah said, loading her super soaker with shaking hands. Far too many. The figures surrounded the truck. Men, women, children of all ages, all hungry, all empty, all reaching out with pale hands toward the windows. Mr. Poindexter, Ichabod's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. You can't escape family. The windows began to crack, not from impact, but from pressure, from need, from hunger. When I say run, Dr. Sarah said, we run for the store. There are people there, witnesses. They can't maintain the illusion with too many observers. What if we don't make it? Then we become like them, another family hunting in the night. The windshield spider-webbed. Ready? Thaddeus nodded, though he wasn't ready. Could never be ready for this. The windshield exploded inward. Glass erupted across the cab like deadly confetti. Thaddeus threw himself sideways, pulling Dr. Sarah with him as thousands of fragments filled the air where their heads had been. Through the destroyed windshield, pale hands reached in, dozens of them, all grasping, all desperate. Now! Dr. Sarah shouted. They burst out the passenger door together, Thaddeus's bulk bowling over 2 of the creatures that had been Cordelia and someone else. A teenage girl in a Letterman jacket from some high school he didn't recognize. They hit the ground hard, and Thaddeus felt that cold burning where their skin touched his. The Flying J was 50 yards away, its bright lights promising safety. But between them and it stood at least 20 of the things, all moving to cut them off with that horrible synchronized precision. Dr. Sarah sprayed her mixture in a wide arc, creating a gap. Move! They ran. Behind them, Thaddeus could hear pursuit. Not footsteps, but something worse. A rustling like dead leaves skittering across pavement. He didn't look back. 30 yards, 20, a child appeared directly in their path. Not Ptolemy, but another boy. Maybe 6 years old, wearing pajamas with cartoon dinosaurs. His eyes were ancient, empty, hungry. Please, the boy said. I'm so hungry. Dr. Sarah didn't hesitate. She kicked the child thing square in the chest, sending it flying. It made no sound as it hit the ground, just got back up and kept coming. 10 yards. The automatic doors of the Flying J sensed them and slid open. They dove through, Thaddeus crashing into a display of chips, Dr. Sarah rolling and coming up with her weapon ready. The fluorescent lights inside were harsh, beautiful, real. There were people, normal people. A tired cashier, 2 truckers getting coffee, a family arguing over snack choices. The thing stopped at the threshold. They couldn't cross. Not with so many witnesses. Sir, are you okay? The cashier, a young man with gauges in his ears, was staring at them with concern. Thaddeus realized how they must look, covered in glass fragments, sweating, terrified. There was an accident, Dr. Sarah said smoothly, despite her heavy breathing. Windshield exploded. Defective glass. We're fine, just shaken. Should I call the police? Already done, she lied. We just need a moment. Through the glass doors, Thaddeus could see them. Still there, still waiting. But to everyone else, they were invisible. The other customers walked past the doors without seeing the crowd of hungry dead standing just outside. They can't come in, Dr. Sarah whispered. Too many living minds. Too much reality. It breaks their illusion. So we're safe? For now? But we can't stay here forever. Thaddeus's phone buzzed. Another text. Come outside. End this. Join the family. Then another. Everyone leaves eventually. And another. We have all the time in the world. Block the number, Dr. Sarah said. It's not a number. It just says unknown. Then turn the phone off. He did. It buzzed anyway. That's not possible, he said, staring at the dark screen now showing a message. You can't turn off hunger. Dr. Sarah pulled out her tablet, fingers flying across the screen. I'm calling in support. There's a network of us, people who've encountered these things and survived. We have protocols for situations like this. Situations like being trapped in a truck stop by hungry ghosts. More common than you'd think. One of the truckers getting coffee walked toward the door, heading out for a smoke. He couldn't see the things waiting outside. Stop him, Dr. Sarah said urgently. Thaddeus moved quickly, intercepting the man. Hey buddy, you got a light? Mine's in my truck. The trucker, an older black man with kind eyes, patted his pockets. Sure, hear you. Through the glass, Thaddeus saw Ichabod's face twist with rage. The thing that had been the Widdershins' patriarch pressed against the glass, and for just a moment, the trucker saw him. Jesus Christ! The trucker stumbled backward, lighter falling from his hand. What the hell is that? You can see them? Sarah asked, moving closer. See what I saw? I don't know what I saw. A face, but wrong. All wrong. You've encountered them before, Dr. Sarah said. It wasn't a question. Maybe not these ones, but something like them. You have the sensitivity. The trucker, his jacket said Marcus, looked between them. You talking about the things at rest stops? The families that ain't quite right? You know, Thaddeus breathed. Been driving 27 years. You see things. Learn what to avoid. Never stop at the Garrison exit in Kentucky. Never use the bathroom at the 12-mile service area in Montana. And never, ever help a family broken down at night. But you've never talked about it, Dr. Sarah said. Who'd believe me? Besides, talking about them seems to make them stronger. Like it invites them in. Outside, more figures were joining the crowd. Thaddeus recognized some of them from missing trucker posters he'd seen over the years. They all stood perfectly still, staring through the glass with their empty eyes. How long until dawn? Marcus asked. Dr. Sarah checked her phone. 3 hours. They'll be weaker then. Not gone, but weaker. Sunlight doesn't kill them, but it makes it harder for them to maintain the illusion. You know a lot about them, Thaddeus said. Marcus rolled up his sleeve, revealing old scars that looked like burns. Got too close once. Indianapolis, 2008. Family of 5 at a rest stop. Said their car was broken. I was young, stupid, helpful. They almost got me. Would have, if another trucker hadn't shown up with a flare gun. Fire hurts them? Fire, salt, running water. They're not ghosts, not exactly, but they follow some of the same rules. Why are there so many? Dr. Sarah was counting the figures outside. I've got 37 now. The Widdershins never traveled with this many. Maybe they called for help, Marcus said grimly. These things, they communicate somehow, share information. If one group finds a particularly tough target, they call in reinforcements, Thaddeus finished. His dead phone lit up again. 43 families now, more coming. 43 families, Dr. Sarah said, doing quick math. If each family is 4 people average, that's over 170 of them. They're pulling in every entity in Mississippi, Marcus said. Maybe from other states, too. The cashier was staring at them now. Y'all okay? You're acting kind of weird. Just tired, Dr. Sarah said. Long night. But the young man wasn't buying it. He walked toward the doors, squinting. Is there something out there? Don't look too hard, Marcus warned. Sometimes seeing them lets them see you. But it was too late. The cashier's eyes widened as the veil lifted for him. Oh God, what are those things? The moment he saw them, they saw him. Every head turned in perfect unison to stare at the young man. Get away from the door, Dr. Sarah ordered. The cashier stumbled backward, but the damage was done. The things pressed closer to the glass. The automatic doors started to slide open, sensing their presence. The doors! Thaddeus lunged for the manual override, slamming his fist on the emergency stop button. The doors froze halfway open. Cold air rushed in, carrying that sweet, sick smell of decay. And with it, whispers, so hungry. Join us. Family is forever. You can't fight the emptiness. The other customers in the store were starting to notice something was wrong. The arguing family had stopped, staring at the doors. The other trucker had put down his coffee. Everyone needs to move to the back of the store, Dr. Sarah announced with authority. There's been a chemical spill outside. Dangerous fumes. Most people started moving, but some hesitated. Through the half-open doors, pale hands were reaching in, testing the barrier. Marcus grabbed a bag of road salt from a display. This might help. He tore it open and poured a line across the doorway. Where the salt touched the reaching hands, they recoiled with hisses of pain. We need more, Dr. Sarah said. All of it. They grabbed every bag of salt in the store. Road salt, table salt, sea salt from the gourmet section. They created a barrier 3 feet deep across the entrance. The things outside moaned in frustration. Thaddeus's phone buzzed again. This time it was a call. The screen showed a picture, the Widdershins' family, but from when they were alive. A normal family photo, probably from that vacation they never completed. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Poindexter. It was Ichabod's voice, but different. Sadder, more human. Please, we just want to go home. You are home. That rest area is your home. No, home is Akron. Home is our little house on Maple Street. Home is where Ptolemy's toys are, where Cordelia's garden grows, where our lives were. Your lives ended in 1987. Did they, or did they just change? We're still here, still together, still a family. You're parasites. You feed on others. We feed because we must, because the hunger demands it. But if we could fill it, truly fill it, maybe we could rest. Maybe we could finally take that vacation. What do you want from me? You're strong, Mr. Poindexter, stronger than most. You could feed us for a long time, long enough, perhaps, to break the cycle. You want me to sacrifice myself? We want you to join us willingly. It's different when someone chooses it. The hunger is satisfied differently. Dr. Sarah grabbed the phone. He's not interested. She hung up. Immediately, all the phones in the store started ringing. The cashier's cell, the store phone, even the pay phone that probably hadn't worked in years, all ringing in unison. "Don't answer them," Dr. Sarah warned, but the cashier had already picked up the store phone. His face went pale as he listened. Then, without a word, he started walking toward the door. "Stop him!" Marcus shouted. Thaddeus tackled the young man just before he reached the salt barrier. The cashier fought with surprising strength, muttering, "Family. Need to join the family." "He's been influenced," Dr. Sarah said. The call created a connection. The other customers were getting agitated. Some were trying to call 911, but their phones weren't working properly. Others were demanding to leave, not understanding why they were being kept inside. "We're going to have a panic soon," Marcus said. Through the doors, Thaddeus saw something that made his blood freeze. Cars were arriving in the parking lot. Dozens of them. All old, all in various states of decay. The vehicles of families that had been taken over the years. "They're all coming," he whispered. "Every one of them in the state." "Maybe more," Dr. Sarah said, watching her tablet. "I'm seeing energy signatures from Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee. This is unprecedented. They've never gathered in these numbers before. Why now? Why us? Because you escaped twice. That's never happened before. You're an anomaly, and anomalies must be corrected." The fluorescent lights in the store began to flicker. The temperature dropped 10 degrees in seconds. "They're pushing against reality itself," Dr. Sarah said. "This many of them, all focused on one point. They might actually be able to break through. What happens if they do? Then this place becomes like the rest area, a wound in the world where the normal rules don't apply." The salt barrier began to smoke. The crystals were darkening, consumed by some invisible force. "We need another solution," Marcus said. Dr. Sarah was typing frantically on her tablet. "I've sent out an emergency call. Every hunter in 5 states knows what's happening, but help won't arrive in time. Then we fight," Thaddeus said, surprising himself with his determination. "With what? You can't fight hunger with your fists." "No, but you can feed it." They all looked at him. "You said they want me specifically, that I could feed them for a long time. What if I gave them what they wanted?" "That's suicide," Dr. Sarah said flatly. "Is it? Or is it the only way to save everyone else in this store? There has to be another way." But even as she said it, the salt barrier crumbled entirely. The doors slid fully open. The things poured in. The store erupted in chaos. Customers screamed as they finally saw what had been hidden. The pale figures moved through the aisles like a tide, reaching for anyone they could touch. Marcus threw bags of chips and cans of soup, anything he could grab. It didn't hurt them, but it slowed them slightly. Dr. Sarah emptied her super soaker, creating a path of burning, screaming entities, but there were too many. And in the middle of it all stood the Widdershins family, patient as death, waiting for Thaddeus to make his choice. "Mr. Poindexter," Ichabod said, his voice cutting through the chaos, "end this. You know what you have to do." Thaddeus looked around the store. The cashier was pressed against a wall, terrified. The family with children huddled behind the counter. Marcus and Dr. Sarah fought desperately, but they were being overwhelmed. All these people would die, or worse, because of him. Because he'd stopped at the wrong rest area. Because he'd escaped what should have claimed him. "If I come with you," he said, "you let everyone else go." "Thaddeus, no," Dr. Sarah shouted. "All of them," Thaddeus continued. "Every person in this store walks out alive and unchanged, and you never come back here, never hunt from this place again." Ichabod considered this. You'll come willingly? No resistance? No resistance. Then we have an accord. The chaos stopped instantly. The entities stepped back, creating a path from Thaddeus to the door. Don't do this, Dracera pleaded. Take care of my truck, Thaddeus said, tossing her his keys. Make sure my company knows. Tell them I had a heart attack or something. Something normal. There has to be another way. There isn't. He looked at Marcus. You know there isn't. Marcus nodded slowly, sadly. Sometimes the only way out is through. Thaddeus walked toward the door. Each step felt like a mile, but also like coming home. The hunger inside him, the one he'd been fighting, rose to meet its kin. The Widdershins family surrounded him as he exited the store. But something was different. They looked more human, more like the family in that old photo. Thank you, Cordelia said, and she sounded genuinely grateful. Will it hurt? Thaddeus asked. No, Ptolemy said, taking his hand. It's like going to sleep, and then waking up different. They led him to their van. Up close, he could see it clearly now. Not the decay he'd perceived before, but a vehicle caught between states. Real and unreal, solid and ethereal. One more thing, Thaddeus said. I want to know what you really are. Ichabod smiled sadly. We don't know. We only know what we became. The hunger came to us as it came to those before us, and as it will come to those after. It's older than memory, older than meaning. It simply is. And now, I'll be part of it. Yes, but also part of us, part of a family. You'll never be alone again. That should have been horrifying. But to a man who'd driven alone for so many years, who'd eaten so many meals in empty truck stops, who'd spent so many nights in the isolation of his cab, it was almost appealing. He got in the van. The moment he sat down, he felt the change beginning. Not painful, just different. The world looked different. The store, which had seemed so bright and safe, now looked harsh and uninviting. The people inside looked like candles, flickering with life force he could almost taste. The hunger will be strong at first, Cordelia said, sitting beside him. But we'll teach you to control it, to take only what you need, only from those who won't be missed. Like you took from me? You were different, Ichabod said, starting the van. The engine sounded like whispers. You were strong enough to carry us all, to fill the void that's been growing for decades. With you, we might finally be able to rest. Or to move on, Ptolemy added hopefully. As they drove away, Thaddeus saw Dr. Sarah and Marcus standing in the doorway of the store. Dr. Sarah was crying. Marcus saluted. His phone, his dead, turned-off phone, lit up one last time. A text from Dr. Sarah. I'll find a way to save you, I promise. But Thaddeus knew she wouldn't. Couldn't. Because he was already gone, already changing, already becoming something else. The convoy of dead families followed them out of the parking lot, a funeral procession for his humanity. They drove back toward the rest area, back to the space between spaces where things like them belonged. As the miles passed, Thaddeus felt his old life falling away. His memories became fuzzy, distant. His name started to feel foreign. The hunger grew, but so did something else, a sense of belonging, of purpose. Welcome to the family, the Widdershins said in unison. And despite everything, despite the horror of what he'd become, Thaddeus found himself saying, "Thank you." The rest area appeared ahead, exactly where it always was, where it never was. Home. As they pulled in, Thaddeus saw other truckers already there. Future family members, though they didn't know it yet. One of them, a young woman driving a FedEx truck, was walking toward the restroom. Should we? Cordelia asked. The hunger surged, demanding, relentless. Yes, Thaddeus heard himself say, we should. They got out of the van, moving in perfect synchronization. The woman looked up, saw them, smiled uncertainly. Hi there, Thaddeus said, his voice already taking on that hollow, pleasant tone. Having trouble with your truck? We'd be happy to help. We're like a family here. The woman's smile widened. That's so kind of you. Actually, I could use some help. And so it continued. And so it would always continue, until the hunger was finally fed. But the hunger is never fed. The GPS had been acting strange for the last 40 miles, cutting in and out with bursts of static that sounded almost like whispers. Bartholomew Quimbley had driven these Mississippi backroads for 12 years, but tonight, in the thick of a moonless August night, nothing looked familiar. He'd taken what he thought would be a shortcut off Highway 61, following a route suggested by another trucker at the last weigh station. Saves you an hour if you're heading to Natchez, the man had said, sketching out directions on a napkin. Just follow County Road 427 until you hit the fork, then bear left. But there had been 3 forks so far, and no sign of County Road 427. Bartholomew's Peterbilt rumbled through the darkness, high beams cutting through humidity so thick it looked like fog. The 40-foot refrigerated trailer behind him was loaded with medical supplies bound for a hospital in Natchez, supplies that absolutely had to arrive by morning. The penalty clause in the contract would bankrupt his small owner-operator business if he failed to deliver on time. At 61 years old, Bartholomew had thought he'd seen everything the road could throw at him. He'd driven through blizzards in Montana, sandstorms in Nevada, even a tornado in Oklahoma. But being lost in Mississippi felt different. Wrong. The trees pressed in on both sides of the narrow road, Spanish moss hanging like funeral shrouds. No lights anywhere except his own. No other vehicles. No signs of civilization at all. The fuel gauge read a quarter tank. Enough to go maybe 60 more miles if he was careful. The problem was, he had no idea if he was 60 miles from anywhere or 600. His phone showed no signal, hadn't for the last hour. The CB radio produced nothing but static on every channel. Even the satellite radio had gone quiet, leaving him alone with the rumble of the engine and his increasingly anxious thoughts. A shape appeared in the road ahead. Bartholomew hit the brakes, the trailer's weight pushing against the cab as he brought the rig to a stop. A tree had fallen across the road, a massive oak that must have been growing for centuries. There was no way around it. The ditches on either side were too deep for his truck to navigate. Damn it all to hell, Bartholomew muttered, setting the parking brake. He'd have to back up, find somewhere to turn around. But as he put the truck in reverse, his backup lights illuminated something that made his blood run cold. Another tree had fallen across the road behind him. He was certain it hadn't been there when he'd passed. He would have seen it, would have felt the truck drive over even a branch. He was trapped. Bartholomew sat in his cab for a moment, considering his options. He could wait until morning, hope someone came along. But the medical supplies needed refrigeration, and his trailer's cooling unit would drain the battery if he let it run all night without the engine going. He could try to move one of the trees, but even the smaller one probably weighed several tons. Then he saw the light. Off through the trees to his right, maybe 100 yards into the forest, a warm yellow glow like lamplight. A house? Way out here? He grabbed his flashlight and his phone, locked the truck, and started walking toward the light. The ground was soft, spongy with decades of decomposed leaves. The air smelled of rot and stagnant water. Something rustled in the underbrush, keeping pace with him but staying just out of his flashlight's beam. The light grew brighter as he pushed through the undergrowth. Then, suddenly, the trees opened up into a cleared area, and Bartholomew found himself looking at the most incongruous thing he'd ever seen in the Mississippi backwoods. It was a house, but not the rundown shack or modest farmhouse he'd expected. This was a mansion, 3 stories of pristine white columns and wraparound porches, like something out of Gone with the Wind. Every window blazed with light, and he could hear music, old-timey jazz, drifting from inside. A couple sat on the front porch in rocking chairs, despite the late hour. The man stood as Bartholomew approached, and even in the dim porch light, Bartholomew could see he was dressed like someone from another era. Suspenders, bow tie, hair slicked back with pomade. "Well, well," the man called out in a cultured southern accent. "A visitor. How delightful. I'm Archibald Pennywhistle, and this is my wife, Magnolia." The woman stood as well, smoothing down a dress that belonged in a 1950s catalog. She was beautiful in an unsettling way, like a porcelain doll that had been too perfectly painted. "I'm sorry to bother you folks," Bartholomew said, stopping at the porch steps. "My truck is blocked by fallen trees and I'm lost. I was wondering if I could use your phone." Archibald and Magnolia exchanged a look that Bartholomew couldn't quite read. "Oh, I'm afraid we don't have a telephone," Archibald said. "We prefer to live simply out here, away from all that modern nonsense." "No phone?" Bartholomew looked at the house again. Electric lights blazed in every room. He could hear the jazz coming from what sounded like a record player, but a very high-quality one. "Maybe you could tell me where I am, then?" Bartholomew asked. "I was trying to find County Road 427. 427? Magnolia laughed, a tinkling sound like breaking china. "My dear man, there hasn't been a County Road 427 in these parts for 30 years. They rerouted everything when they built the new highway." 30 years? But the trucker at the way station had just— "You look tired," Archibald said, descending the porch steps. Up close, Bartholomew could see the man's skin had an odd quality to it, too smooth, like wax. "Why don't you come in, have some refreshment? We so rarely have visitors. I really should get back to my truck." "Nonsense. Those trees aren't going anywhere, and neither is your truck. Come, let us offer you some proper Southern hospitality." There was something in the way he said it that made it sound less like an invitation and more like a command. Magnolia had moved to the front door, holding it open, and the warm light spilling out did look inviting. Bartholomew was tired. He was lost. And these people, odd as they seemed, were his only hope of finding his way out. "Just for a few minutes," he said. The inside of the house was even more anachronistic than the outside. Every piece of furniture looked like it had been frozen in time circa 1952. The jazz music came from a pristine phonograph in the corner of what they called the parlor. The walls were covered in family photographs, all in black and white or sepia tones. "Please, sit," Magnolia said, gesturing to a velvet settee. "I'll fetch some lemonade." She glided out of the room, and glided was the right word. Her feet didn't seem to quite touch the floor. Archibald settled into an armchair across from Bartholomew, crossing one leg over the other with mechanical precision. "So, Mr. Quimbley, Bartholomew Quimbley. Mr. Quimbley, what brings you to our little corner of Mississippi?" "I'm a trucker, hauling medical supplies to Natchez." "A trucker? How fascinating. Tell me, what year is it in your profession now?" "What year? What kind of question was that?" "It's 2024, Bartholomew said slowly. Archibald's eyebrows raised slightly. "Is it now? My, how time does fly." Magnolia returned with a tray bearing a pitcher of lemonade and 3 glasses. The lemonade was the wrong color, too dark, almost brown. She poured 3 glasses with careful precision, handed one to Bartholomew. He took a polite sip and immediately wished he hadn't. It tasted like lemons that had gone bad years ago, sweet and rotten at the same time. He set the glass down carefully on a doily-covered side table. "You have a beautiful home," he said, trying to change the subject. "We've been here a very long time," Magnolia said, settling beside her husband. They moved in perfect synchronization, like dancers following choreography only they could hear. "How long?" "Oh, time is such a relative thing," Archibald said. "Sometimes it feels like yesterday, sometimes like centuries." Bartholomew stood up. Every instinct was screaming at him to leave. "I really should check on my truck. Thank you for the lemonade." "But you haven't asked the important question yet," Magnolia said. "What question?" "How to leave, of course." The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. The jazz music slowed, warped, like the record was melting. "The roads around here," Archibald said, standing as well. "They're tricky. They don't always go where you think they will. Don't always take you where you want to go. Sometimes," Magnolia added, also rising, "they bring you exactly where you're meant to be. I'm meant to be in Natchez, with my delivery. Are you, or are you meant to be here with us? We've been waiting for someone like you. Someone like me. Someone strong. Someone with endurance. Someone who can help us with our particular situation." Bartholomew backed toward the door. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. I just need directions." "We all need something, Mr. Quimbley," Archibald said, following him step for step. "You need directions. We need assistance." "With what?" They exchanged that look again, and this time Bartholomew caught what it meant. Hunger. They were looking at him like he was a meal. "You see," Magnolia said, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper, "we've been here so very long, and we're so very tired, but we can't leave, can't rest, can't stop." "Stop what?" "Collecting," Archibald said. The photographs on the walls suddenly made sense. They weren't all of the same family. They were different people, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all posed in the same positions, in the same rooms, wearing similar clothes, like a collection. "Those are," Bartholomew started. "Our guests," Magnolia finished. "Over the years. So many travelers, lost on these roads. We offer them hospitality. Some accept, some don't." "What happened to them?" "They're still here," Archibald said, and his smile was too wide, showing too many teeth. "Would you like to meet them?" Bartholomew ran. He burst through the front door, leaped off the porch, and ran toward the trees where he'd entered the clearing. Behind him, he heard Archibald and Magnolia laughing. Not the normal laughter of amused hosts, but something else. Something that sounded like wind through a graveyard. The trees seemed denser than before. The path he'd taken vanished. Branches caught at his clothes. Roots tried to trip him. His flashlight flickered and died, leaving him to stumble through the darkness guided only by the faint glow of his truck's marker lights in the distance. When he finally broke through to the road, he saw something that made him stop dead in his tracks. The fallen trees were gone. The road was clear in both directions. But his truck was different. Older, covered in rust and moss like it had been sitting there for years. The trailer's refrigeration unit was silent, dark. The tires were flat, rotted. "That's not possible," he whispered. "Time is such a relative thing." He spun around. Archibald and Magnolia stood at the edge of the forest, still in their perfect clothes, still wearing their perfect smiles. "Your truck has been here for quite some time," Magnolia said. "Though, I suppose it's only been a few minutes for you." "That's not my truck." "Isn't it? Check the registration." Check the cargo. Against his better judgment, Bartholomew approached the cab. The door creaked open on rusty hinges. Inside, scattered on the seat, were his possessions: his logbook, his sunglasses, his coffee mug. But they were aged, faded, covered in dust. The logbook's last entry was dated August 15th, 2024. Today's date? No, today's date was August 15th, 2024. How long? He asked, not turning around. 3 years, Archibald said. You've been our guest for 3 years. That's impossible. I just got here. You just got here. You've been here for 3 years. Both are true. Time doesn't work quite right around our house. Bartholomew's phone, dead for so long, suddenly lit up. Dozens of messages flooded in. Missed calls, texts, voicemails, all dated over the course of 3 years. His company wondering where he was. His sister filing a missing person report. His ex-wife calling to say she was sorry about their last fight. Please come home. This is a trick. The only trick, Magnolia said, moving closer, is thinking time moves the same for everyone. You entered our house. You drank our lemonade. You became part of our collection, even if just for a moment. Then let me go. Oh, we will, Archibald said. We always let our guests go, eventually, after they've helped us. Helped you with what? Finding more guests, of course. You see, Mr. Quimbley, the house needs people. It feeds on their time, their stories, their essence, and in exchange, it keeps us young, beautiful, eternal. You're parasites. Such an ugly word. We prefer to think of ourselves as curators. We preserve moments, preserve people, preserve stories. In photographs, among other things. Bartholomew noticed movement in the trees. Shapes, people. They emerged slowly. Dozens of them, all dressed in clothes from different eras. A man in a Union Army uniform. A woman in a 1920s flapper dress. A teenager in a Letterman jacket from the 1960s. More recent ones, too. A businessman in a 2000 suit. A young woman in modern jogging gear. They all moved wrong, like marionettes with half their strings cut. Our collection, Magnolia said proudly. Gathered over 150 years. You're over 150 years old? Oh, much older than that. The house has been here since before the Civil War. We were its first residents. And now you want me to join them. Not just join, Archibald said. Help us expand. You see, the roads are changing. Fewer people get lost now, with their GPS and smartphones. We need someone who knows the modern roads, who can guide travelers to us. I won't. Won't you? Magnolia touched his arm, and where her fingers made contact, Bartholomew felt his skin age, wrinkle, then return to normal. You've already lost 3 years. Your life outside is gone. Your job, your relationships, everything you knew. What do you have to go back to? She was right. Even if this was some kind of trick, even if only minutes had passed, who would believe him? He'd been missing for 3 years. His CDL would be expired. His truck was destroyed. His company had probably declared him dead. I see you understand, Archibald said. So here's our offer. Help us for, let's say, 10 years. Bring us travelers. Help maintain the collection. And then we'll let you go, with your youth restored and enough money to start over anywhere you want. 10 years? Which will pass like 10 minutes for you if you choose. Or like 10 actual years. Time is negotiable here. And if I refuse? They looked at the collected people around them. The Union soldier's mouth opened and closed, no sound coming out. The flapper woman reached toward Bartholomew with desperate, grasping fingers. "Then you join them," Magnolia said simply. "Another photograph on our wall, another story in our collection, forever." Bartholomew looked at the assembled collection of lost souls, their eyes pleading, their mouths forming silent words. The Union soldier kept pointing at something, his own throat, then at Archibald, then at the house, trying to communicate something. "What's he trying to say?" Bartholomew asked. "Oh, don't mind him," Archibald said dismissively. "Colonel Matthias has been trying to warn people for over a century. Never succeeds, can't, part of the arrangement." "Arrangement?" "The house has rules," Magnolia explained. "Those who are collected can't speak to newcomers, can't write, can't communicate in any meaningful way. It prevents complications." The businessman from the 2000s was holding up his fingers. 3, then 0, then 3, then 0. Over and over. 303, Bartholomew guessed. The man shook his head violently, then tried again. This time he held up 3 fingers, pointed at Bartholomew, pointed at himself, then made a 0 with his hand. 3, me, you, 0. 3 years, the jogger suddenly said, and everyone turned to stare at her in shock. 3 years becomes 0. He's trying to tell you. Her voice cut off mid-sentence. Archibald had raised his hand, and she froze completely, like someone had hit pause on a video. "Well, that's unfortunate," he said. "She must be newer than we thought. The binding hasn't fully set." He walked over to the frozen jogger, touched her forehead. She collapsed, then slowly got back up, her eyes now as empty as the others. "What did you do to her?" "Reset her. She'll be more compliant now." Magnolia sounded bored. "They all fight at first, then they accept, then they help. It's the way of things. You said 3 years had passed, but that businessman was trying to tell me something different." "Was he? How can you trust someone who's been here so long? The mind plays tricks after a while." But Bartholomew had caught something in their expressions when the jogger spoke. Fear. Just for a moment, but it was there. "You're lying about something." "Everyone lies, Mr. Quimbley. The question is whether the lie serves a purpose." Bartholomew's phone buzzed again. A new message, except it wasn't new. It was dated 3 minutes ago, August 15th, 2024, 3:47 a.m. "Where are you? Dispatch is freaking out. Your GPS went dark. Marcus, his dispatcher. 3 minutes ago, not 3 years. "Interesting," Archibald said, reading over his shoulder. "It seems the house can't quite decide what timeline you belong to. Because I haven't agreed to anything. Precisely. You're in flux. Schrodinger's trucker, you might say. Both here and not here, both then and now. Then I can still leave." "Can you?" Magnolia gestured to his truck. It flickered, alternating between rusted hulk and functional vehicle. "Which version would you drive? The one that's been rotting for 3 years, or the one that doesn't exist yet?" This was giving Bartholomew a headache. None of this makes sense. It doesn't have to make sense, it just has to be. Archibald walked back toward the house. "Come, let us show you something that might clarify matters." Bartholomew didn't want to go back into that house, but the collected people parted to form a path, gently herding him forward. He could run, but where? The roads might not even be real. The house looked different this time. Older, the white paint was peeling. The columns showed cracks. Inside, the pristine 1950s furniture was interspersed with items from other eras: a Victorian fainting couch, a medieval tapestry, a flat-screen TV that looked brand new. The house exists in all times simultaneously, Magnolia explained. We've simply learned to navigate it. They led him upstairs, down a hallway that was much longer than the house's exterior dimensions should have allowed. Doors lined both sides, each marked with a year. 1863, 1919, 1955, 1987, 2001, 2020. Each room is a moment, Archibald said. A captured piece of time when someone joined our collection. He opened the door, marked 2021. Inside, Bartholomew could see the jogger. Not the empty-eyed puppet from outside, but the real her, frozen mid-scream as she realized what was happening. The room around her was a perfect snapshot of the moment. Leaves falling outside the window suspended in mid-air. A bird frozen mid-flight. She's still in there, Bartholomew said. Still aware. Of course. That's what makes it valuable. The fear, the realization, the moment of transition. The house feeds on that. You're torturing them. We're preserving them, Magnolia corrected. Without us, without the house, they would have died on these roads, crashed their cars, had heart attacks, been murdered by actual criminals. We saved them. By trapping them forever? Forever is such a limiting concept. Archibald opened another door, 1971. A young man in bell-bottoms stood frozen, reaching for a door handle that would never turn. This gentleman, for instance, he experiences that single second over and over forever. But to him, it's always the first time. He doesn't know he's trapped. The suffering you imagine doesn't exist. But the ones outside do know. Those are echoes, shadows. The real them are here, safe, preserved. And you want me to help you add more. The house must feed, Mr. Quimbley. If it doesn't, it collapses. And when it collapses, all these moments collapse with it. All these people die, truly die, all at once. They showed him more rooms. So many rooms. Men, women, children even. All frozen, all preserved. All fuel for whatever the house was. What is this place? Bartholomew asked. Really? Not the lies, not the metaphors. What is it? Archibald and Magnolia exchanged looks. We don't know, Magnolia admitted. We found it, or it found us, in 1847. We were newlyweds, heading west, when our wagon broke down. The house was here, empty, waiting. We went inside for shelter. And we never left, Archibald continued. Couldn't leave. The house wouldn't let us, but it offered us a deal. Feed it and live forever. Refuse and become like them. So you chose to become monsters. We chose to survive. Anyone would. I wouldn't. Wouldn't you? Magnolia opened a door at the end of the hall. Unlike the others, it had no year marked on it. Look, inside was Bartholomew, or a version of him. Older, grayer, sitting in a rocking chair on a porch that looked exactly like the one downstairs. He was smiling, watching as another lost traveler approached the house. That's one possible future, Archibald said. You, having accepted our offer, having lived here for 20 years, helping us, happy in your way. That's not me, not yet. Magnolia opened another unmarked door. This one showed Bartholomew frozen like the others, caught in a moment of pure terror. And that's another possibility. You having refused, preserved forever in that single instant of realization. You're showing me these to scare me into agreeing. We're showing you these because they already exist. The house experiences all time simultaneously, remember? Every possible outcome has already happened. We're just waiting to see which one you'll choose. Bartholomew's phone rang. An impossible call, Given there was no signal, he answered it. "Bartholomew." It was his own voice, old and tired. "Listen to me. Don't trust them, but don't refuse them either. There's a third option." "Who is this?" "You." "From a timeline where I figured it out. The house has rules. It can only take what's freely given or forcibly refused. But if you neither accept nor reject..." The call cut off. Archibald was staring at the phone with genuine surprise. That shouldn't be possible. Seems like a lot of impossible things are happening tonight. "The house is confused by you," Magnolia said, and for the first time she sounded worried. "You're not reacting as the others did. Maybe because I'm different. Or maybe," said a new voice, "because he's not alone." They all turned. A woman stood in the hallway, though she hadn't been there a moment before. Middle-aged, wearing modern clothes, carrying what looked like a modified CB radio. "Impossible," Archibald said. "No one can enter the house without invitation." "I didn't enter," the woman said. "I've been here all along. Room 1987. She looked at Bartholomew. "Dr. Rebecca Morrison, parapsychologist. I've been studying this place from the inside for 37 years, or 3 minutes times funny here. You're one of the collected?" "Was, until about 5 minutes ago when your presence disrupted things. You're causing temporal fluctuations. The house can't figure out when you are, so it's losing its grip on all of us." "That's not possible," Magnolia insisted, but her perfect composure was cracking. "The house's power is absolute." "The house's power is based on consistency," Dr. Morrison corrected. "Every person it takes follows the same pattern. Arrival, invitation, choice, collection. But you," she pointed at Bartholomew, "you're breaking the pattern. Your truck is simultaneously here and not here. Your timeline is simultaneously now and 3 years from now. You're a paradox, and paradoxes give the house indigestion." The house shuddered. Not like an earthquake, but like reality itself hiccuped. For a moment, Bartholomew saw through the walls, saw all the rooms at once, all the trapped souls, all the possible futures and pasts bleeding together. "Stop it," Archibald commanded. "You're destroying everything." "Good," Dr. Morrison said. She turned a dial on her device and static filled the air, but not random static. It had a pattern, a frequency. "This is a temporal disruption signal. I've been building it piece by piece every time the house let me have a moment of awareness. It's designed to amplify paradoxes." The hallway stretched and compressed. Doors opened and slammed shut. The collected souls from outside began appearing in the hallway, their eyes gradually becoming less empty. "If the house collapses, everyone dies," Magnolia screamed, "including you." "Maybe," Dr. Morrison said. "Or maybe we all go free. Only one way to find out." She cranked the dial higher. The static became a shriek. The house's lights flickered between gas lamps, candles, electric bulbs, and LED strips. Time was coming apart at the seams. "Choose!" Archibald grabbed Bartholomew. "Accept or refuse. Either one. Just choose and end this." But Bartholomew remembered the phone call, his own voice telling him there was a third option. "I choose neither," he said. The house went silent. Completely, utterly silent. Even the static stopped. "What?" Magnolia whispered. "I don't accept your offer, but I don't refuse it either. I simply decline to choose. You have to choose. Those are the rules. Your rules, the house's rules. But I'm not playing by them." The house shuddered again, more violently. Cracks appeared in the walls, but through them, Bartholomew could see not the outside, but Other times, the Civil War, the Great Depression, last Tuesday. "You're breaking it," Archibald said, and for the first time he sounded afraid. "No," Dr. Morrison said. "He's freeing it. The house isn't evil, it's trapped too, forced to play this same game over and over. Feed or die. Collect or collapse." But what if there's another option? What option? Let go. The cracks in reality widened. Through them, Bartholomew could see every moment the house had ever experienced simultaneously. The first peoples who had lived on this land, long before European colonization. Spanish explorers in the 1500s. French settlers. The plantation that had stood here before the house. The house's construction in 1842. The fire that destroyed it in 1863. Its rebuilding, its abandonment, its rediscovery by Archibald and Magnolia. "This is wrong," he said suddenly. "You said you found the house in 1847, but it wasn't built until 1842. Archibald and Magnolia exchanged panicked looks. "You're not the original owners," Dr. Morrison said, understanding dawning on her face. "You're just the longest-serving collected. You made a deal with something else, something older." "Shut up!" Magnolia's face was no longer beautiful. It was cracking like old paint, revealing something underneath. "You don't know what you're talking about." "The house was built on something," Bartholomew said, pieces clicking together. "Something that was already here, something that needed to feed." The floor beneath them became transparent. Below, far below, deeper than any basement should go, something moved. Something vast and dark and hungry. "Oh my God," Dr. Morrison breathed. It wasn't a house. It had never been a house. The house was just bait, like an anglerfish's lure. The real thing was underneath, had always been underneath, waiting. "It's been here since before humans walked this land," Archibald said, his voice hollow. "The indigenous peoples knew. They avoided this place, called it the hunger that waits. But European settlers didn't listen, built here anyway. And it adapted," Magnolia added. "Learned to use human structures, human forms, learned to feed more efficiently. And you help it. We have no choice." Archibald's facade cracked completely, revealing not a monster but a terrified man. "It has us. Has had us for so long we don't remember who we really were. We're as trapped as anyone." "Then help us stop it," Dr. Morrison said. "Can't. The binding is too strong. We can only do what it wants." The thing below stirred. The house shook. Through the transparent floor, Bartholomew could see tentacles. No, not tentacles. Something worse. Extensions of space-time itself, reaching through dimensions, through moments, collecting, feeding, growing. "But he can," Magnolia pointed at Bartholomew. "He's not bound, not collected, not yet. What can I do against that?" "Choose," Dr. Morrison said. "But not the choice they offered. Choose something else entirely." "Like what?" "The house, the thing. It feeds on transitions. The moment someone goes from free to trapped, from alive to preserved, it's addicted to that moment of change. So give it the ultimate transition. Give it its own death." "How?" Dr. Morrison held up her device. "This doesn't just disrupt time. It reverses it. Locally, anyway. I can send the house back to before it existed, but someone has to activate it from inside the thing's true body. That's suicide. Maybe, or maybe it's the only way any of us get out of here." The collected souls were all in the hallway now, dozens of them, all looking at Bartholomew with desperate hope. The Union soldier, the flapper, the businessman, the jogger. all the photographs from the walls. Real people, trapped for so long they'd forgotten their own names. If I do this, what happens to them? They go back, Dr. Morrison said, to their own times, their own lives, as if this never happened. And the penny whistles? Archibald and Magnolia looked at each other with something that might have been relief. We go back, too, Archibald said. To 1847, to our wagon on the road, to the choice we should have made, to keep going, to anywhere but here. And you? Bartholomew asked Dr. Morrison. I go back to 1907, to my car breaking down, to the choice to walk to this house or wait for help. And this time, I wait. And me? You go back to 3 minutes ago, to your truck blocked by trees that were never really there. And you turn around, you take the long way. You deliver your medical supplies a few hours late and pay the penalty. But you live. That's it? That's the plan? Press a button and hope we all get a do-over? Unless you have a better idea. The thing below roared, not with sound but with pure hunger. The house began to collapse and rebuild itself simultaneously, existing in all states at once. Choose, Archibald and Magnolia said in unison, but Bartholomew could tell it wasn't them speaking. It was the thing using their voices. Choose now or be consumed. I choose, Bartholomew said, taking the device from Dr. Morrison, to end this. He ran, not away from the thing but toward it, down stairs that shouldn't exist, through doors that opened onto nothing, deeper and deeper into the house's impossible geometry. Behind him, he could hear the others following, not to stop him, but to help. The Union soldier tackled a manifestation that tried to block the path. The jogger kicked open a door that had no handle. The businessman shouted directions to rooms he'd been trapped in for 2 decades of seconds. The basement wasn't a basement, it was a throat. The thing's true mouth disguised as architecture. The walls were wet, pulsing, alive. The air tasted of copper and rotted time. At the center was something that hurt to perceive. Not because it was horrible, though it was, but because it existed in too many dimensions at once. Bartholomew's brain kept trying to process it and failing, showing him fragments. Teeth that were doorways, eyes that were windows, a heart that was every clock that had ever ticked in the house. Here, Dr. Morrison shouted, pointing to what might have been the thing's core. Or one of them. Put the device there and activate it. Bartholomew fought his way forward. The thing's defenses were more conceptual than physical. Suddenly, he was 5 years old, lost in a shopping mall. Then he was 17, watching his father die. Then he was 30, signing divorce papers. Every moment of loss and fear and transition in his life weaponized against him. But he kept moving. Because behind him were people who had endured worse for longer. The colonel had been trapped since 1863. The flapper since 1923. They had suffered decades, centuries. He could handle a few more minutes. He reached the core, placed the device. His finger hovered over the activation button. Wait. Magnolia's voice, but really Magnolia this time, not the thing. If you do this, if you reverse it all, we won't remember. None of us will. We'll be saved, but we won't know we were saved. Is that bad? Those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. Someone else will build here. Someone else will feed it. She was right. If they all forgot, if this was erased, the thing would just wait for the next victims. Unless, Dr. Morrison said, someone remembers. Someone outside the effect. How? Your truck. It's been in temporal flux this whole time, existing both here and not here. If you activate the device from inside your truck's cab, you might remain partially outside the effect, you might remember. Might? Or you might be torn between timelines and cease to exist. I don't know. The thing roared again. The house was coming apart faster now. Walls became ceilings, became floors, became nothing. "Do it!" Archibald shouted. "Whatever you're going to do it now!" Bartholomew ran again, up from the basement throat, through the dissolving house out to his truck. It was solid now, real, his anchor to the present. He climbed in, still holding the device. Through the windshield he could see everyone. All the collected souls standing in a circle around the truck, holding hands, protecting him, buying him time. He looked at the device, such a small thing to end such a vast horror. He pressed the button. Reality screamed. Then, Bartholomew jerked awake in his truck's cab. The engine was running. The dashboard clock read 3:44 a.m., August 15th, 2024. Through the windshield he could see the road ahead, clear and empty. No fallen trees, no obstacle at all. His phone buzzed. "Where are you?" Marcus texted. "GPS shows you stopped." Bartholomew looked around. He was on a small pull-off on a back road. Why had he stopped? He couldn't remember. Something about trees? A house? He shook his head, trying to clear the fog. He'd been driving for too long, that was all. Microsleep, dangerous. He pulled back onto the road, checking his GPS. He was only 40 miles from Natchez. He'd make his delivery on time after all. As he drove, he noticed something in his cup holder. A piece of paper, folded and worn. He didn't remember putting it there. At the next red light, he unfolded it. It was a note in his own handwriting. "The Penny Whistle house is real. County Road 427 doesn't exist. If you see the lights through the trees, don't stop. The thing below is still hungry, still waiting. Remember, someone has to remember." Below that, in different handwriting, "Thank you. Archibald and Magnolia. Penny Whistle, 1847. And below that, in yet another hand, "The device is under your seat, just in case. Dr. Rebecca Morrison, 1987. Bartholomew reached under his seat. His fingers found something metal, covered in dials and switches he didn't understand. He pulled over again, his hands shaking. Memories flooded back and not all of them, but enough. The house, the thing, the collected souls, the choice he'd made. He looked back at the road he'd just driven. In his mirrors he could see lights through the trees. Warm, inviting lights from a house that shouldn't exist. As he watched, a car slowed down. Its driver probably lost, probably tired, probably thinking how nice it would be to ask for directions. Bartholomew grabbed his CB radio, tuning to channel 19. "Breaker, breaker, this is Quimbley. Anyone southbound on the old highway near mile marker 47, do not, repeat, do not, stop at the house with the lights. Take the long way around." 10-4, Quimbley, came a voice. "Appreciate the heads up. Weird thing to warn about, though. You have no idea." The car on the road sped up, past the hidden turnoff to the house. Safe for now. Bartholomew put the device back under his seat and continued driving. He had medical supplies to deliver. But now he had another job too. Watching. Warning. Remembering. Because the thing below was still there, still hungry. The house was still there, waiting for the next lost traveler. The penny whistles, in some timeline, were still trapped, still collecting. But now someone knew. Someone remembered. And as long as Bartholomew kept driving these roads, kept warning others, maybe that would be enough. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Quimbley." The voice was old, refined, familiar. "This is Archibald Pennywhistle, the real one, I mean. from 1847. That's impossible. The timeline was reversed. For most. But you created a paradox, remember? Some echoes remain. We're one of them. Magnolia and I, we're free, but we remember. We remember everything. Where are you? Oregon Territory. We made it west after all. Started a new life, had children, grew old, died. But part of us remembers, will always remember. Why are you calling? To warn you. The thing below, it remembers too. It knows what you did, and it's angry. What can it do? It's trapped in that house. For now. But it's learning, adapting, finding new ways to feed. There are other houses, Mr. Quimbley. Other places where reality is thin. It's spreading. How do I stop it? You can't. But you can warn others. You can teach them to recognize the signs. The too perfect hospitality. The offers that seem too good. The choices that aren't really choices. That's all? That's everything. Knowledge is power, Mr. Quimbley. And now you have knowledge most people don't. Use it. The call ended. Bartholomew drove in silence for a while, processing everything. Then he noticed something. Other trucks on the CB were talking, and their conversation was strange. Yeah, pulled into this rest stop near Biloxi. Family there, acting real friendly. Too friendly, you know. 10-4. Same thing happened to me in Arkansas. Couple with a broken-down van. Something felt off. Brothers, if it feels wrong, it probably is. Keep rolling. They knew. Maybe not the details, maybe not the whole truth, but truckers were talking, warning each other. The network of knowledge was spreading. Bartholomew smiled grimly. The thing below might be ancient, might be vast, might be hungry. But humanity's greatest weapon had always been communication. Stories. Warnings passed from driver to driver, generation to generation. He reached for his CB again. This is Quimbley with a public service announcement. Going to tell y'all a story about a house that shouldn't exist, and the thing that lives beneath it. Some of you might think I'm crazy. That's fine. But if even one of you remembers this story when you see those lights through the trees, if even one of you keeps driving instead of stopping, then it's worth it. He started talking, telling the story of the penny whistle house. Other truckers listened, some laughed, some called him crazy, but some, the ones who'd had their own close calls, their own strange encounters, they believed. Miles passed. The story spread. CB to CB, truck stop to truck stop, driver to driver. The modern version of an ancient tradition, sitting around the fire warning about the dangers in the dark. Bartholomew delivered his medical supplies with 2 minutes to spare. As he was signing the paperwork, the receiving clerk said, "Heard a weird story on the CB coming in. Something about a house that collects people?" "Just trucker talk," Bartholomew said. "You know how it is. Long hours, dark roads, imagination runs wild." "Yeah, but still, makes you think. My cousin disappeared on these roads few years back. They found his truck, but never him." "Where?" "Old highway, near mile marker 47. Bartholomew's blood chilled. "Your cousin, what was his name?" "Robert. Why?" He thought of the businessman in the 2000 suit desperately trying to communicate. "No reason, just, if you ever drive that stretch, don't stop, no matter what you see." The clerk laughed nervously. "You really believe that story?" "I believe in being careful. These roads, they're older than we think, and some things are older still." He left the clerk with that thought and headed back to his truck. He had another load to pick up, another long drive ahead. But now he had a purpose beyond just delivering cargo. Every mile he drove, he watched for the signs. Every trucker he met, he shared the warning. Most didn't believe, but some did, and those some told others. The network grew. 3 months later, Bartholomew was at a truck stop in Tennessee when he overheard two drivers talking. Family at a rest area tried to get me to come to their house. Middle of nowhere, Mississippi. Something about them felt wrong. You didn't go? Nah, remembered that story. The penny whistle warning, they're calling it. Probably saved my life. The penny whistle warning. It had a name now. It was becoming legend. Bartholomew smiled and ordered another coffee. Outside, his truck waited, the device still hidden under the seat. His insurance against the thing below, but his real weapon was simpler. It was the CB radio, the network of drivers, the ancient human tradition of warning others about dangers on the road. The thing below was old, hungry, patient, but humanity was older, hungrier for survival, and infinitely more patient. The roads stretched on, endless and dark. But they were a little safer now, because someone remembered. Someone warned, someone watched, and somewhere, in a house that existed and didn't exist, in a time that was and wasn't, a thing that had fed on human souls for millennia felt something it had never felt before. Fear, because its prey was learning.